A lone white bird perches on a sword amid snowy ruin. The bird's sharp eyes scan the frozen, desolate battlefield. Taking flight, the bird abandons the sword buried in ice. A weary knight gazes upward as snowflakes fall around him. The blond warrior lowers his gaze, burdened by endless war. Monsters emerge from shadows, and the knight draws his blade. The cursed sword pulses with demonic red skulls and malice. Through long years, countless calamities plagued the frozen land. Countless wars raged, leaving only broken armor and bloodied snow. And countless heroes rose to face the encroaching darkness. One warrior stood always at the center of it all, for he wielded the demonic sword Gruhan itself. His armored boots crunch across the frozen blood-stained ground, and now he approaches the cursed fortress alone. Fallen soldiers litter the snow as he marches toward destiny. A monstrous warrior swings its weapon with devastating force. Steel clashes violently, sending sparks and blood into the air. The demon lord rises, wreathed in crimson flames and fury. I am no longer a sword, the blade shatters with blue light, but a knight standing here, he declares, energy swirling around him. Blue flames erupt as he launches his final devastating strike. His eye blazes with celestial power, reflecting the battlefield. A cold, determined smile crosses the transformed knight's face. Snow-covered mountains and blood-stained ramparts remain as silent witness. The knight kneels in blue fire, reborn from demonic chain. A dark knight kneels in snow-blue energy swirling. A horn sounds, calling warriors to their final battle. Heroes assemble in formation, ready for the coming war. Blue energy erupts across the frozen battlefield below. A warrior charges through enemies with blazing blue strike. The blonde hero leaps forward, red cape billowing behind. Ancient heroes are remembered, their legacy now forgotten. The hero smiles confidently, white fur framing his face. Green-skinned orcs fall beneath swift, merciless blade. The hero stands victorious over his defeated enemy. Memories of fallen companions flash through his mind. Masters and disciples who shaped his destiny appear. Blue energy slashes tear through the battlefield violently. A dark-haired warrior carves through orcs with green energy. Legends achieved through blood and sacrifice are remembered. A female warrior battles a massive, terrifying beast. The hero bears fresh wounds, his expression hardening. A single blue eye stares with cold determination. A colossal red beast emerges in this age of calamity. The monstrous creature roars with earth-shaking fury. Blue energy awakens, blazing within the hero's eye. The hero ignites with blue flames, power surging. He faces the massive beast alone, refusing to yield. The hero clashes against the creature in explosive combat. Hero smiles peacefully as warm light surrounds him. A legendary sword stands planted in a sunlit field, awaiting destiny. The blade reveals its origin, reincarnated with ancient glowing power. Across centuries, the sword forged bonds with countless heroic masters. A golden-haired knight appears, the sword's most cherished companion. Leonberger, a humble village boy, discovers his extraordinary calling. The young warrior battles ferocious monsters with fearless determination. Together they roam the world, forging an unbreakable partnership. Leonberger's fierce resolve accomplished unmatched legendary feat. Storm clouds gather over frozen peaks, signaling approaching danger. A violent explosion erupts amid the chaotic battlefield. Battle scars mark Leonberger's face, yet his spirit burns. He charges through swirling ice and howling wind. A colossal dark dragon emerges from the frozen depth. The terrifying beast crackles with menacing pink energy. Leonberger readies his blade, prepared for the ultimate confrontation. A devastating blast of brilliant pink energy erupts. The sword ignites with blazing blue ethereal flame. Blue and pink energies collide in spectacular, violent harmony. Leonberger grins, confidently calling his friend to battle. A shadowy creature rides against the surging blue power. Leonberger strikes with furious, unstoppable momentum. The mighty dragon reels from the devastating blue energy assault. Fallen beast collapses. Victory is finally achieved. Leonberger becomes the legendary hero of the Frozen North. A magnificent kingdom rises. His friend now rules a nation. The legendary Dragon Slayer sword gleams under divine spotlight. A prayer echoes. Gruhan, watch over my descendant. A blinding flash marks the sword's awakening. The sword stirs, disturbed by sudden commotion. Annoyed, the blade questions who dares shake it. A pompous prince declares himself the sword's new master. Guards desperately try reclaiming the sacred weapon. The sword processes this unexpected royal claimant. Prince's arrogance knows no bound. The blade senses something troubling in this descendant. Ancient authority activates, scanning the unworthy holder. The examination reveals a deeply flawed character. Recognition dawns. The Leonberger bloodline once noble. The prince strains, desperate to harness the power. His frustration mounts as he demands recognition. The sword dismisses him as a fool. He invokes Gruhan's name, begging for strength. His scream echoes through the chamber. Guards scatter as he swings wildly. He turns violent, threatening those who oppose him. His obsession with power consumes him entirely. Rage contorts his features mid-strike. Confusion strikes as the sword begins glowing. The blade's light intensifies, preparing to act. A guard falls, struck by the weapon's unleashed power. The possessed prince gasps, hands trembling over his mouth in shock. Guards rush to the fallen prince, desperately calling for a physician. The sword's consciousness realizes the prince was stabbed by his own weapon. Vision blurring, the ancient consciousness feels itself fading into darkness. For the first time in centuries, the legendary sword might faint. Flashback reveals the prince hoarding gold, arrogant and devoid of noble quality. Adrien Leonberger was nothing but a stupid, lazy, brutal pig. Dark clouds loom over the castle as strange rumors spread throughout the kingdom. Servants whisper about Prince Adrien, acting strangely different lately. They speculate he's finally scared after nearly dying from the sword. The sword spirit sits upon the throne, furious at the body theft. A servant announces the king's arrival with panicked urgency. The possessed prince questions why the king ignored him during his near death. A servant nervously warns him to watch his words and actions carefully. The white-haired teacher remarks on the prince surviving death's door. Sword's consciousness wonders who this unfamiliar man could possibly be. The teacher reminds him of their sacred teacher-student bond and relationship. Possessed prince internally questions if this was the pig's teacher. The teacher grows suspicious as the prince claims his memory is shattered. A servant dramatically announces the king's arrival to the chamber. The sword's consciousness deduces this must be the scoundrel prince's father. Possessed prince is surprised. The king appears far better than expected. The king enters with guards and the sword reflects on the bloodline. King approaches, noting the prince hasn't even greeted his own father. The king observes that escaping death doesn't necessarily change a person's nature. Royal court erupts in panic over the prince's sudden memory low. The unconscious prince lies in bed as physicians rush to examine him. Physician finds nothing physically wrong, deepening the mystery. The king suspects psychological shock may have caused the condition. Prince awakens and the king watches his reaction carefully. The king speaks sarcastically about the convenient timing of this memory low. He questions whether past transgressions are now conveniently forgotten. The king lectures about learning from mistakes and growing as a person. He accuses the prince of erasing accountability through his supposed amnesia. The king declares the prince has made no progress from his past error. Guards intervene as the king's anger escalates into outright hostility. The prince internally curses his situation, feeling stripped of royal dignity. He wonders what terrible things the original prince had done. A voice calls his name, pulling him from his troubled thought. The queen embraces him warmly, promising his memories will return. She dismisses his past actions as trivial, trying to comfort him. Then she touches his face with concern, though he sees no damage. Her relief at his recovery shows genuine maternal affection. She warns him against dangerous pursuits that nearly cost him his life. Next, she holds him tightly, overwhelmed by emotion and gratitude. He reflects grimly that the original prince is truly gone forever. The castle looms under moonlight as he contemplates his burden. Queen bids him rest and departs from his chamber. He releases a heavy sigh, weighed down by his circumstance. For a moment he grapples with guilt over failing to protect his friend's son. The reincarnated prince accepts his fate, resolving to live for both himself and his former sword self. Memories of countless lifetimes as a weapon flash through his mind, always serving, never living. He clenches his fist, determined to rebuild his strength from nothing in this new body. Confidence swells as he recalls raising countless disciples across centuries of existence. Standing before the throne, he formulates his first step. Forging a mana heart within this vessel, blue energy gathers around his mouth as he begins channeling mana inward. The scene continues with the next story beat. Mana heart pulses violently, energy spiraling outward in chaotic pattern. He stands amidst fading blue sparks, the initial attempt seemingly complete. Confusion crosses his face as something feels terribly wrong. The mana scatters. His new body cannot contain the power he once wielded effortlessly. Blue energy erupts explosively from his chest, tearing through his control. Pain contorts his features as the unstable mana ravages his untrained vessel. Gritting his teeth, he attempts to force the mana back again and again. Exhausted, he collapses face first onto the cold stone floor. Lying defeated, he stares at the ceiling in disbelief at his body's weakening. Rage builds as he curses this pathetic vessel he's been given. Under a harsh spotlight, he laments losing his original form, once capable of anything. A servant's voice interrupts his despair, requesting permission to enter. A maid presents medicinal tonic sent by the queen, claiming it will strengthen his body. The maid nervously pleads for him to accept the queen's heartfelt concern. Sweat beads on her face. She remembers his violent reactions to past offering. A flashback reveals the prince hurling the bowl in rage, screaming, "He won't drink it." His eyes widen suddenly. Something about this particular tonic catches his attention. Blue flames dance above the bowl's surface. Mana pulses within the liquid itself. A nervous maid serves tea to the arrogant prince in the royal chamber. The prince drinks deeply, testing something within himself. Maid watches with wide, fearful eyes as he finishes. A bowl sits empty, stained with traces of blood from the ritual. The prince commands the trembling maid to leave, satisfied with the test. Blue energy flickers weakly around his chest, barely enough to sustain. The mana scatters quickly, insufficient for his true purpose. Prince corners the startled maid, demanding more of her blood. Days pass as he gathers what he needs for the forbidden ritual. A sinister grin spreads across his shadowed face, finally ready. Blue flames erupt as he declares his intent to forge a mana heart. He boasts of his experience, having performed this countless times before. His eyes widen in shock. Something feels terribly wrong this time. Agony tears through him as he clutches his chest in unbearable pain. Visions of past victims flash, others who burn from within. A crystalline blue gem begins forming inside his chest cavity. He grits his teeth, remembering that pain is part of the process. Sweat drips as he fights desperately to stay conscious. If he loses focus now, the mana will reverse and destroy him. His vision blurs, body trembling against the overwhelming force. He forces himself to concentrate, blue energy swirling violently. His will grasps the rampaging mana, refusing to let it control him. He guides the energy slowly through his veins, following the blood's path. The new mana heart takes shape, seeping into his very being. Ritual nears completion as the cursed prince embraces his dark power. Blue mana swirls violently around the kneeling prince as the ritual reaches its climax. Sweat drips down his face, blue eyes blazing with intense concentration and strain. He collapses to his knees, gasping. Doan, as energy crackles around his chest. A crystalline blue heart pulses within his grasp, his very own mana heart forged at last. The prince leaps up triumphantly, shouting, "I did it, it's complete," with pure joy. Golden light erupts from his chest as he declares, "I made a mana heart." His celebration falters. Something feels off. Confusion crosses his face. A glowing status window appears. A mana heart has been created. He recognizes the format. He stares at the window, wondering why this message is showing for him now specifically. Multiple status windows cascade down, warning of disconnection from the source. Gazing out the window, he muses. Authorities, huh? Sensing something greater at play. His enhanced vision captures every leaf on the distant tree with startling clarity. Close-up of sunlit leaves. His perception has sharpened dramatically since the ritual. He strains to hear voices from outside, puzzled why servants aren't entering his room. Servants whisper nervously outside, afraid of his infamous temper if disturbed. A sudden flash of power surges through him. As his senses overload, warning windows appear. All mana depleted. Forced cessation of authority oasis. He clutches his head, finally understanding what extremely limited truly meant. A memory of his sword form. His perfect omnidirectional sensitivity is now completely gone. He carefully squeezes out a tiny speck of mana just to eavesdrop and see clearly. Determination returns. He clenches his fist, planning to expand his mana capacity. A chibi version of him stands awkwardly as reality sets in with comedic timing. His stomach growls loudly. "I'm hungry. The human body demands sustenance." He calls for food, immediately resolving to adapt to living in this human vessel first. The queen appears radiant, exclaiming, "How admirable!" Delighted by his sudden change. Queen touches his face, warmly delighted. He drank every drop of medicine. A dark figure looms in the doorway as the queen and prince sit together. The imposing man asks if the prince recognizes him. He answers honestly, "No." Uncle confirms the memory loss is real. The queen begs him to help. The prince realizes this stern man is his uncle, the queen's brother. Uncle scoffs dismissively, claiming the prince's past was never worth remembering. The prince's expression hardens as he prepares to set the record straight. Uncle bluntly states the best he can do is shave off some fat. He warns the prince to abandon any foolish hopes beyond that bare minimum. Confusion clouds the prince's face as question marks swirl around him. The uncle's gaze sharpens with visible irritation and barely concealed contempt. A sudden strike sends the prince crashing face first onto the cold ground. Standing over him, the uncle declares everything he consumes must now be approved. He teases that proper effort might earn the prince a glimpse of secret technique. The prince scoffs. This man trained the nation's founding king and greatest knight. Uncle smirks, noting the prince's trembling fat betrays his rising anger. The prince rises slowly, addressing the man with newfound determination. Uncle. He declares within half a year, Hell force his uncle to acknowledge him. The prince stakes everything. If he fails Hell, obey any command without question. But should he succeed, his uncle must grant him one wish in return. The uncle grins with amusement, finding this unexpected challenge genuinely interesting. He accepts the bet, claiming he could use some entertainment himself. The prince pants heavily, realizing his boast may have exceeded his current ability. Blue mana ignites around his feet as he curses this damned body's limitation. Channeling raw power, he resolves to burn away every ounce of fat first. The dark-haired man's eyes widen in shock, muttering in disbelief. He confronts Adrien directly, demanding answers about what happened. Blue energy flickers weakly around Adrien's chest as he looks down. The man shouts incredulously, "Adrien actually formed a mana heart." Adrien smiles nervously, playing innocent about the whole thing. He casually reveals he made one a while ago, showing the blue glow. The man's sharp gaze pierces through, questioning his foolish decision. He demands to know where Adrien even learned such a forbidden technique. Adrien stares back blankly, completely confused by the reaction. A voice explains mana hearts are crude methods used only by low-ranking mercenary. Birds scatter from the castle as shock reverberates through the air. Adrien clasps his hands, lamenting how the world has declined. The man reiterates, mana hearts are nothing but crude mercenary trick. Adrien's face drains of color, sweat dripping down his cheek. He stammers in confusion while the man offers to demonstrate the truth. The dark-haired man commands him to watch closely, green energy swirling. Adrien's eye reflects the mana, forming into a ring shape instead. The man channels brilliant blue energy, demonstrating the proper technique. A blinding flash of mana erupts as the demonstration reaches its peak. Mana chains scatter energy far more efficiently than crude mana heart. The man reveals the Earl Eli family was destroyed for clinging to mana heart. Adrien reads an ancient tome, realizing times have truly changed. Ancient mages once wove magical circles to channel their power. Knights evolved the art-weaving chains to gather and concentrate mana. The chain ranks progress from single to fifth chain, the pinnacle of mastery. Prince discovers Altlingen's name holds genuine historical weight. He traces ancient records, recognizing a legendary bloodline. Recognition dawns. This name connects to something far greater. A flashback reveals the legendary Sword Saint's fateful encounter. Ernest Altlingen challenged the Sword Saint for the coveted title. The prince realizes why that name felt hauntingly familiar. He wonders what became of that legendary challenger long ago. The prince trains relentlessly, pushing his new body to limit. His teacher questions whether he studied the assigned text. The dark-haired guardian warns him about his foolish choice. Prince smirks, dismissing the gravity of his situation. He confidently declares he feels no regret whatsoever. The guardian questions his awareness or his stubborn denial. Blue mana flames reveal not all hearts possess equal power. The guardian demonstrates superior mastery, asking about different classes. He scoffs at the prince's claims of ancient reincarnation. The guardian warns of countless failed heroes from centuries past. None survived their first challenge. They all crashed and burned. The prince dares him to prove himself against a double-chain knight. Guardian smirks. Victory means becoming his sworn protector. The prince laughs, questioning if such a guardian benefits him. They face each other in the courtyard, tension crackling. A boot steps forward. His qualifications have been questioned. Teal energy erupts as he reveals his true authority. He commands the Northern Army as one of 5 Silver Lion. Teal energy erupts as Vale unleashes his true quad-chain power. 4 mana rings weave around him. A quad-chain knight revealed. Vale Valhard introduces himself with terrifying confidence and authority. The prince asks if his qualifications are finally sufficient now. A golden lion emblem gleams on polished silver armor. A blade is drawn with deadly precision and intent. Guards intervene, commanding Vale to stand down immediately. Vale smirks, unbothered by the interruption whatsoever. The prince grins, demanding Vale never go back on his word. Later, the prince collapses face first onto the cold ground. His exhausted body slumps over a table, completely drained. "I almost died." He wheezes, barely clinging to consciousness. Vale mocks him. Beating a single chain would be lucky. The prince trudges away, cursing that damned monster under his breath. A court physician greets the prince at his chamber. The physician bows deeply, claiming unworthiness to be remembered. Queen ordered healing magic for the prince's battered body. Green mana glows ominously as the physician prepares his spell. The prince screams in panic, refusing the healing desperately. He worries healing will undo all his hard-earned progress today. A silver-haired knight watches the scene with quiet concern. A woman calls out, asking if her brother is inside. A charming young noble in red smiles with crossed arm. The prince eats reluctantly, clearly unimpressed by the meal. Chewing slowly, he wonders, who exactly is this punk? A knight whispers urgently about the third prince's arrival. A nobleman in red arrives mentioning the prince's grave incident. The prince eats, asking what this visitor truly want. Visitor's eyes burn with fury over past event. He mentions hearing interesting news about the prince. The prince freezes. His bet with Earl Valhard is known. Visitor smirks, clearly enjoying this moment of power. He offers himself as the prince's sparring opponent instead. The prince sits in stunned silence with his knight. He questions who this bold visitor. Actually, the knight reveals Prince Gillian's legendary swordsmanship reputation. At 14, Gillian mastered 2 mana chains. A prodigy, a nervous maid interrupts their tense conversation. She carries an enormous stack of letters for the prince. The prince wonders why people suddenly care about him. His eyes narrow with suspicion at this strange development. The room falls silent as the prince considers everything. Letters reveal nobles seeking sparring matches and offering apology. Shadowy figures plot to defeat the prince in combat. A wicked grin spreads. He sees golden opportunity here. The maid responds nervously to his sudden interest. He orders names recorded, then demands a sword immediately. A wooden training sword crashes dramatically onto stone. The prince stares at it, utterly confused by 3. Basic swordplay is required for the bet's validity. The knight warns against excuses if the prince loses their bet. Prince kneels exhausted, complaining about his teacher's harsh attitude. The prince's eyes widen, sensing something unexpected in the air. Agonizing muscle pain erupts as he screams through brutal training. The knight questions whether the prince ever received healing magic. He reminds the prince that any knight should know this truth. Healing magic restores muscles to their original state. They never grow. The knight smirks, knowingly confirming the prince's dawning realization. He turns away, dismissing the topic as not his main point. The knight draws his blade, warning hell only demonstrate once. Teal energy engulfs him as he reveals the true training form. His eye blazes with concentrated power mana surging within. Swift slashes carve luminous arcs through the darkened courtyard. Energy trails spiral dramatically as his swordsmanship reaches blinding speed. He holds a perfect stance, energy radiating from every movement. The blade ignites with brilliant teal mana, humming with power. A devastating final strike explodes outward with overwhelming force. From above, the knight stands centered within a perfect energy circle. The prince stares, frozen mouth agape at the breathtaking display. Knight finishes, asking if this is the kingdom's foundational swordsmanship. His sharp gaze pierces through, gauging the prince's comprehension. He explains training swords lack power, but teach perfect fundamental. The knight suddenly sweats, sensing something unexpected from his student. Prince wipes his brow, recognizing that legendary technique somehow. A flashback reveals the legendary Dragon Slayer sword that slew Madney. The prince sees this feeling reduced to a worthless training toy. His guardian suggests finding another master after mastering basic. The prince refuses, declaring this wooden sword alone is enough. Scarred guardian stares skeptically at the stubborn prince. White-knuckled grip on the wooden sword. Do whatever you want? A powerful swing cuts through the air with tremendous force. Kneeling in exhaustion, he laments the Dragon Slayer's disgrace. Sweat drips as he admits this feeling comes naturally. A flashback reveals the dark spirit of the Dragon Slayer. Blue mana heart wielders couldn't handle the sword's true value. The wooden blade strikes hard, sending shockwaves through the courtyard. Guardian stands over him as the sword splinters apart. Arm strength alone cannot power the blade properly, he explained. The strike must originate from the waist, not just arm. Power flows through the legs. Without them, the swing fails. Strength must distribute throughout the entire body to swing properly. The prince breathes heavily, acknowledging the hard truth. Even this weak body clumsily imitates the legendary Dragon Slayer. He vows to prove the sword wasn't worthless rag to discard. One determined step forward begins his relentless training journey. 2 days, 3 days, his heavy body pushes through exhaustion. A full week passes as he swings endlessly in the courtyard. Blue mana erupts from his chest. His heart awakens during training. After a month, his constitution finally begins transforming completely. Sweat glistens on his determined face. Change has finally come. Golden light envelops his transforming body as old traits dissolve into new potential. Blue mana surges through his swing, cutting the air with newfound precision. A confident grin spreads across his face. His constitution has fundamentally changed. Mana sensing awakens naturally as his sword flows more fluidly than ever before. He stretches triumphantly, feeling stronger than yesterday with every fiber. His eyes blaze with glowing blue intensity, sweat dripping from pure exertion. Another perfect swing erupts with brilliant energy, each strike surpassing the last. A voice shouts for him to stop as a wooden sword shatters mid-swing. The impact sends fragments scattering across the rain-soaked courtyard. 3 figures stand in the downpour. the prince his uncle and a silent knight. Blood seeps from his white-knuckled grip on the broken wooden hilt. Crimson droplets splash into puddles, mixing with the relentless rain. Kneeling in the storm, he looks up and whispers, "Uncle." Rain streams down his face as his piercing blue eyes meet a familiar gaze. The training sword stands embedded in stone, crackling with residual golden energy. Lightning-like power splits the wooden blade apart in a violent fracture. His expression shifts. Something dangerous awakens behind those glowing eyes. His uncle storms forward, furious at such reckless training in dangerous weather. The prince remains silent, his face unreadable beneath the pouring rain. His palm reveals raw, blistered skin, the price of relentless determination. Text reveals his body remembers extreme concentration even as consciousness returns. A wild laugh escapes his lips as realization dawns upon him. He mutters about 2 concentrations inviting lightning, dangerous power awakening within. A servant rushes toward them through the rain, shouting urgently for the prince. His uncle's face hardens with deep concern, sensing something unprecedented has changed. The prince collapses, muttering "foolish kid" through exhaustion. Sweat drips down his pale-faced eyes, barely open. He wakes in his dark chamber, wondering if he lost consciousness. Holding his throbbing head, he realizes his body's true limit. Memories flood in, past lives all masters of their weapon. A dark dragon spirit awakens, whispering of unprecedented swordsmanship. Gruhan, the legendary sword, was always just a third party. His palms reveal brutal blisters and calluses from relentless training. A manic grin spreads, intoxicated by earning every drop of sweat. Staring at his fist, he knows this weak body will break. Over a month since creating his mana heart, time for the next stage. Blue mana crackles around him as his power stabilizes. Through steady effort, his body withstands slightly more mana now. Deep within his mana heart pulses and begins expanding. His hand reaches toward the brilliant blue core, growing stronger. Raw energy surges, his body adapting to greater mana capacity. His very constitution transforms from the expanded mana heart within. His eyes snap open with sudden piercing intensity. Blue flames erupt from his chest. "Perfect," he shouts. He approaches a real sword, grinning with dangerous anticipation. His hand firmly grips the steel hilt with newfound confidence. He swings, blue aura trails behind, reaching sword learner level. The blade ignites with blue flames. "I can handle the burden." A knight approaches, warning rumors have spread throughout the kingdom. The knight scowls. His bet has caused trouble for everyone now. Prince muses about finding a sparring partner quickly. Prince Gillian smiles charmingly, arms crossed, considering the request. The prince smirks confidently. He's already chosen his opponent. Veil reveals quad chains ready to face single chain opponents first. The prince calls for Carls, his loyal knight attendant. Carls presents a list of nobles who sent duel requests. Carls questions whether the prince truly plans to duel them all. Shadowy figures plot revenge. Most challengers hold dangerous grudge. The prince smirks, knowingly fully aware of their intention. He suggests Uncle Vale should referee the upcoming duel. The prince requests only that no one dies during combat. Days later, a nervous challenger arrives for the first duel. The Grand First Prince's palace looms imposingly in the distance. Taylor Talheim introduces himself, second son of a baron family. Flashback reveals nobles mocking Taylor's family years ago. His family suffered humiliating mockery at a royal banquet. The family's honor, shattered father and brother still ridiculed. Taylor's eyes burn with fury. Adrien Leonberger must pay. Taylor arrives at the duel, swearing vengeance for that day. He formally introduces himself, trained in single-chain swordsmanship. The prince looks unimpressed. Onlookers question if Taylor's truly a knight. Taylor sees at the prince's rude, arrogant demeanor. Vale intervenes, commanding Taylor to calm himself before the duel. Taylor recognizes the legendary Lord Balorhard and freezes in shock. Taylor bows deeply. Meeting his idol is life's greatest honor. The prince jokes people might mistake his uncle for royalty. Dark-haired guardian scolds him about past misbehavior. He commands both fighters to take their positions now. The duel officially begins as both draw their blade. Opponent charges forward, teal energy crackling around him. With a menacing grin, he addresses the prince mockingly. The prince dodges desperately as someone shouts a warning. A devastating slash tears through the air with tremendous force. Their blades collide, energy erupting from the violent impact. The prince smirks, criticizing his opponent's unnecessary movement. Blue and teal energies clash in a blinding explosion. The opponent's eyes widen, detecting a mana heart within. Prince launches himself skyward, pressing his sudden advantage. His rival stammers, confused how a mana heart blocks chain. The prince's blade glows blue. Just feels ticklish. He taunt. Opponent's confidence shatters, shock written across his face. Spectators gasp. The wooden sword is actually singing aloud. The teacher's eyes widen, recognizing the legendary sword song. Blade vibrates intensely, resonating with impossible power. The opponent attacks, desperately screaming that this cannot be. Prince freezes, stunned by his own weapon's response. Their final clash erupts with overwhelming, devastating force. The opponent is launched backwards, screaming through the air. A massive energy explosion engulfs the entire courtyard. The ground shatters from the catastrophic impact of their duel. Dust clouds swirl as both fighters stagger from the catastrophic collision. Taylor realizes chain mana and heart mana are fundamentally opposing force. Blue energy surges through his chest. His mana might explode any moment. Taylor's rage boils. His the second son of Baron Talheim. The prince calmly tells his opponent he needs to cool down. His eyes narrow with dangerous intensity, something awakening within him. He sinks into a vast blue void of swirling energy. A commanding voice orders him to awaken, reaching toward the light. A dragon spirit manifests, speaking of the legendary divine sword. His hand touches the glowing blade as his mana heart accepts his will. A dragon's eye opens, the dormant dragon slaying power awaken. Crimson energy erupts around him, the dragon slayer's essence igniting within. The dragon slayer's heart activates, flooding him with terrible power. His eyes transform, burning with ancient predatory crimson light. He kneels surrounded by the dragon spirit, tempered for dragon slaying. The dragon's essence merges completely with his awakened slayer's heart. Taylor watches in horror, unable to comprehend this terrifying transformation. Uncle Vale screams, desperately ordering the prince to stop immediately. The prince attacks with overwhelming crimson energy, barely restrained. Prince pauses, asking his uncle one question before continuing. He warns. If he looks like hell, kill his opponent, intervene. The prince launches forward, blade crackling with dangerous, unleashed power. Uncle Vale unleashes his own blue energy, prepared to stop his nephew. Blue and crimson energies collide violently in a devastating clash. Uncle Vale stands firm, surrounded by swirling protective blue energy. The prince slumps against shattered stone, utterly defeated by his uncle's blow. Uncle Vale unleashes a devastating flurry of blades, overwhelming his opponent completely. Onlookers gasp. Attempting to harm royalty could mean severe punishment for Count Balerhard. The prince weakly protests, claiming he requested this brutal training himself. Blood drips from his lips as he grins, hinting at something unrevealed. He mutters that being knocked unconscious wasn't part of their agreement. Blue mana energy swirls violently within his chest, threatening to tear him apart. He clutches his chest, fearing his mana heart might shatter from the strain. Uncle Vale's power dwarfs ordinary swordsmen. The prince absorbed that devastating strike head-on. The blue glow stabilizes, and he realizes no lasting damage occurred. A triumphant smile spreads across his face. He emerged victorious from the duel. His uncle notices the grin and questions why he's smiling after such punishment. Uncle Vale arrives, demanding answers about what transpired during the fight. Vale's anger flares as he demands to know what dark technique was used. The prince claims he simply followed the sword's true essence. Vale scoffs. How can someone who's never seen real battle speak of such thing? The essence of the sword, Vale realizes, is killing intent itself, brutal yet genuine. Even this crude expression of violence carries its own undeniable truth. The prince is taken aback by his uncle's unexpected perspective. He admits he expected a lengthy lecture about the sword's noble journey instead. Vale clarifies he's a soldier, not a knight. His path is victory, not virtue. The prince starts to object, but catches himself mid-sentence. Vale warns that excessive bloodlust will blur the line between ally and enemy. The prince counters that this entire ordeal was meant to address that very flaw. Vale crosses his arms, declaring hell. Observe whether the prince succumbs to his inner darkness. After 3 days of practiced duels, teal energy crackles as blades clash relentlessly. Taylor Talheim stands, exhausted sword planted in the cracked courtyard stone. The prince acknowledges Taylor's hard work with a satisfied, almost predatory grin. Red killing intent erupts as the prince attacks head-on with terrifying, uncontrolled power. The prince taunts Taylor's frustration at never landing a single blow during training. A servant arrives carrying an ornate wooden chest at the prince's command. Taylor stares at the chest nervously, asking what this mysterious gift contained. The prince recalls someone's promise to return money holding the chest with purpose. He instructs Taylor to deliver the chest, money, and a letter to Baron Talheim. Taylor departs, clutching the chest as the prince watches with calculating eye. Taylor shouts thanks into the sunset, vowing those who wronged his family will pay. The prince's duels become kingdom-wide gossip. Many predict his arrogance will be his downfall. Shadowy nobles plot, eagerly anticipating the prince's humiliation and downfall. Days pass without the expected scandalous news. People begin questioning what truly happened. Gossip shifts. Whispers claim the prince wasn't as weak as rumors suggested. The prince and his attendants freeze, hearing accusations that the royal family silence witness. Prince slams his fist, violently furious at the muzzled accusation. He shouts that defeated nobles are simply too embarrassed to admit they lost. A dark-haired companion dryly suggests the prince try doing something productive instead. A terrified servant clutches the chest as the prince looms with menacing intensity. Flames rage behind the prince as he commands proper spread of the duel result. The prince smiles, smugly believing the rumors should finally calm down now. His confidence shatters. Something unexpected has just reached his ear. The servant nervously reveals a new rumor. The prince threatened people to fake result. Prince's face darkens into shadow, a sinister smirk forming as plans shift. Blue flames swirl around him as he dismisses the chaos, eager to train. The prince lunges forward, his blade trailing brilliant blue energy. Scene continues with the next story beat. The scene continues with the next story beat. A dark-haired opponent clashes against him, blue mana erupting between them. The sword blazes with concentrated blue flames humming with raw power. His mana heart pulses visibly through his chest, energy radiating outward. He asks Carls how many duel opponents remain. Today is the last. Exhausted, he sighs that apprentice knights no longer satisfy his growing strength. Vale warns the final opponent has trained proper swordsmanship beyond family style. A legendary sword rests against the Iron Lion Knight Order's crest. The prince grins knowingly, an apprentice of the Iron Lion Order. A female knight enters the courtyard. Arwin Kirgayan. Guards confirm the Iron Lion crest gleaming on her polished armor. Rumors whisper she's the woman who shattered every man's heart. Confident footsteps echo as she approaches the dueling ground. Guards marvel at her breathtaking beauty, stunned she came willingly. Her sharp profile cuts through shadow. Cold, composed, dangerously elegant. Her piercing eye narrows as she mutters a quiet anyway. Full armor gleaming, Arwin stands revealed. A prodigy of the Iron Lion Order. The Order's emblem blazes above her, legendary swordsmanship preceding her name. Prince frowns, confused why such a prodigy would duel him. Vale mentions a past misunderstanding. The prince admits he probably started it. He turns to a servant girl, demanding she explain his past action. The girl stutters, nervously unable to meet his piercing gaze. Servant girl confesses the prince harassed Sir Arwin. The prince reacts with furious disbelief at the accusation. Arwin calmly adjusts her glove, her expression unreadable. A flashback shows the prince crudely propositioning Arwin. He grabs her arm, his tone dripping with arrogant entitlement. Arwin coldly informs him the Knight Order is not his property. Enraged, the prince shouts insults at her, retreating back. Back in the present, the prince awkwardly admits his past word. He dismisses it as the behavior of a delinquent youth. Arwin questions if he truly considers that youthful behavior. She formally greets him, noting he hasn't changed at all. The prince smirks, claiming his entire core has been replaced. Arwin's eyes narrow sharply at his cryptic statement. Count Balarhard arrives to officiate the duel. He recognizes Arwin, his expression turning serio. Arwin formally introduces herself as an Iron Lion apprentice. The count warns her the prince's sword is viciously unpredictable. Prince protests the referee's lack of neutrality. Count Balarhard simply smirks and prepares to start. He orders both duelists to take their position. Arwin draws her blade, her focus absolute. The duel officially begins under the watchful tower. Arwin launches forward with blinding, precise speed. The prince turns a dangerous smile on his lip. His eye reflects her incoming strike, calling her movements decent. Blue mana erupts as blades collide violently between them. The prince grimaces. His mana attempts dangerous reverse flow. Arwin's cold gaze pierces through crossed steel blade. A powerful strike sends the prince staggering backward. Arwin's relentless assault overwhelms him with blinding speed. The prince realizes he's completely outmatched by her technique. Arwin channels devastating blue energy into her next attack. Dragon Slayer's heart awakens, flooding him with crimson power. Arwin's eyes widen in shock at his sudden transformation. Red and blue energies clash explosively between the two fighters. Arwin desperately dodges the prince's enhanced crimson strike. She retreats, reassessing the threat he now poses. Arwin questions the nature of his strange, powerful sword. The prince notes her chain mana differs from lesser opponent. Authority of Insight activates, revealing her true capability. Her stats display. Arwin Kirgayan, a formidable apprentice knight. The prince considers what limited insight can reveal about her. Crimson energy swirls around him as confidence returns. Arwin readies her blade, blue flames dancing along its edge. He calculates their strength levels are nearly matched. The real battle between them is about to begin. Both fighters pant heavily from the intense exchange. Arwin struggles to catch her breath mid-combat. They face each other across the cracked courtyard stone. A blade gleams ominously in the fading light. Uncle Vale halts the duel with a commanding shout. The prince scoffs, annoyed at the interruption. Arwin calmly agrees she was about to finish it. Their blades spark, each daring the other to continue. Vale's powerful aura forces them apart, ending the clash. He orders both wounded fighters to receive immediate healing. A healer rushes to the prince, green light glowing. The prince winces as another bruise is tended. Another healer attends to Arwin's injuries in the background. Arwin watches silently, her expression unreadable. They turn and walk away from each other. The duel resumes under the setting sun. Onlookers note this is the third day of their match. A guard praises both Sir Arwin and the first prince. Arwin stands ready, hoping to see the outcome today. The prince smirks, saying he has something to say. Arwin coldly states she won't accept an apology. Her purple eyes glow with intense, unwavering resolve. The prince waves it off, claiming it's not about pride. He grins, suggesting a prize for their fierce battle. Suddenly, he proposes the loser must obey the winner's every command. Arwin stands in stunned silence at the outrageous term. Guards protest, calling the prince's words unacceptable for royalty. The prince dismisses the guards, focusing only on Arwin. He asks for her thoughts on his humiliating proposal. Arwin explains her sworn duty protecting the royal family. The prince claims his rights to their wager boldly. Red energy surges as the prince approves this thinking. No backing out now. The duel officially begins between them. Blades collide violently, sparks erupting from their fierce clash. Arwin launches forward with teal energy trailing her sword. His eyes glow crimson, a predatory smile spreading across his face. Massive red energy explodes outward from his devastating strike. Arwin gasps. His speed has increased dramatically since yesterday. A dragon spirit manifests behind him, questioning her hidden skill. Their weapons shatter against each other in a brutal exchange. The impact sends Arwin staggering backward, pain flashing across her face. He presses forward with crimson flames while she desperately defends. Exhaustion overtakes her as she pants, struggling to keep pace. His relentless assault continues without mercy or hesitation. Their swords meet once more in another devastating collision. The duel rages onward as the sun begins setting. His final strike sends her sliding backward across the courtyard. The watching Iron Lion Knights stand frozen in stunned silence. Uncle Vale observes the battle unfolding with grave intensity. She collapses to the ground, disbelief written across her face. Kneeling in defeat, she acknowledges he won their wager. The prince stands over her fallen form, speaking her name. A satisfied, knowing smile spreads across his victorious face. Arwin looks up at him and declares, she wants him. The guard reflects on serving the kingdom's infamous delinquent prince. He formally introduces himself as the new personal guard. The prince seemed arrogant, yet surprisingly calm, unlike rumor. Prince suddenly dashes across the courtyard toward something. The guard watches, confused, sensing the opposite of what he heard. Rain pours as someone trains relentlessly with a sword. The guard worries. The storm is too dangerous to ignore. He shouts desperately, warning His Highness of the danger. Lightning crashes violently near the training ground. The prince stands, frozen, eyes wide at the sudden strike. Guard's eye narrows, a realization dawning within him. A memory surfaces. He once believed the prince would become great. Back in the present, Arwin kneels and declares she wants him. Onlookers gasp in shock at her shameless declaration. The guard questions whether he misjudged the prince entirely. Arwin hesitates, her expression faltering slightly. She demands to know if that is truly his desire. The prince smirks, calling her just an ordinary apprentice. His lips curl as he reveals what he actually wants. Arwin's eyes widen at his words about her potential. He declares he needs a knight who chooses him freely. The guard stands stunned, sensing a pivotal moment unfolding. At sunset, the prince demands a knight bound only to him. His insight reveals her exceptional swordsmanship and hidden trait. The prince smiles, addressing her by name. Arwin Kirgayan. Prince stands victorious, commanding her to become his knight. Flashback shows young Arwin training relentlessly against multiple opponents. Others only saw her beauty, never recognizing her as a true knight. Blue energy erupts as blades clash during her intense training. Arwin stands over a defeated opponent, proving her combat pro. The announcer declares her victory. Arwin Kirgayan wins the match. She systematically defeated every apprentice who stood in her way. Another fierce exchange of strikes demonstrates her exceptional swordsmanship. Despite her victories, doubt still lingers about her true worth. The Order used her image, but never truly valued her as a knight. Arwin reflects on her past, the weight of constant judgment pressing down. She questions whether the prince genuinely sees potential in her future. The prince watches her with an intensity that suggests Hesserio. As the sun sets over the courtyard, he asks her to promise one thing. She demands he treat her as a knight, not as a woman. If he honors that condition, shall accept his terms without hesitation. His piercing gaze reveals he understands the weight of her request. Her determined expression shows she won't compromise on this principle. He agrees to her terms, sealing their pact with a promise. Arwin kneels before him as fireworks illuminate the courtyard. She begins her formal oath, introducing herself as House Kurgain's first daughter. There she pledges her sword and life to Prince Adrien Leonberger. A nobleman watches the ceremony unfold with silent observation. The prince performs the knighting ritual, tapping his sword upon her shoulder. He declares her a knight in his name as rightful heir of Leonberger. Arwin kneels before the prince's sword, planted, reciting the sacred knight's oath at sunset. The prince holds his blade above her head as she pledges bravery, courtesy, and loyalty. Iron Lion knights watch her walk away, questioning her oath to that delinquent prince. 3 knights argue furiously, desperate to find a way to void her vow made on a bet. They whisper conspiratorially, wondering if some secret relationship exists between them. The prince screams in his chambers, furious. They think Hes the root of all evil. He fumes about being labeled scum while a silent knight watches from behind. Karls stands motionless, his expression unreadable, as the prince rant. The prince turns confused as Karls addresses him formally as Your Highness. Karls brings up something the prince said days ago, leaving him bewildered. Karls recalls the prince's royal order on the last day of their duel. The prince admits it's true. Royal orders must be obeyed regardless of personal wish. He smirks, suggesting Karls could always swear loyalty later if needed. Karls asks quietly if the prince would accept his oath of fealty. The prince immediately refuses, turning away with a blunt, "Nope." He claims there's no fun in raising Karls, his eyes cold and calculating. The prince laughs it off while Karls stands with crossed arms, unamused. Prince suddenly grows serious, insisting his earlier words weren't a joke. A royal decree arrives. Prince Adrien is released from confinement for the upcoming banquet. The prince scratches his head, confused why his punishment ended early. King cedes, recalling how they locked him away like unwanted trash. The prince walks with Karls and a maid, unable to read the king's intention. He admits he has nowhere to go and no one to meet even if freed. The maid gasps sharply while examining a letter in her hand. She stammers an apology, having discovered an invitation addressed directly to the prince. Prince Adrien stares at the envelope, confused by the unexpected invitation. A servant presents the ornate card, its crest gleaming under light. He reads aloud, puzzled by the social club for special young lord. The maid explains he was once a member, leaving him bewildered. She hesitates, recognizing exactly which establishment he means. Flashback reveals debauchery. Drinking women, young lords indulging shamelessly. Disgusted, Adrien dismisses it as pointless nonsense, unfit for him now. His eyes suddenly widen, catching something crucial on the invitation. The sender is Bernard of House Eli, calling himself an eternal friend. Adrien's expression shifts. Eli is a name he actually remembers. A dark memory surfaces. House Eli clung to mana hearts until collapse. Decision made, he tells the maid to prepare for his attendance. He hopes quietly that House Eli hasn't fallen completely beyond saving. 4 months of training later, the tailor marvels at his transformation. The outfit follows his orders. Black, minimal decorations, simple design. Adrien stands proudly in the new attire, dignity perfectly preserved. He notices his dramatic weight loss. The tailor is astonished. The tailor eagerly offers to design the banquet outfit immediately. Adrien stops him. His body will change again before then. Days later, the royal carriage rolls toward the mysterious society gathering. A stern knight escorts the procession through the city street. Adrien yawns, dramatically complaining about the exhausting burden of royalty. The closed carriage escorts, everything feels suffocatingly restrictive to him. His gaze suddenly sharpens, noticing something unexpected nearby. The maid freezes, caught off guard by his sudden attention. Adrien notices a scar on Adelia's neck, asking what happened. Adilia kneels, blaming her own lack of ability for the injury. Adrien recalls his terrible past reputation. Country bumpkin, little twerp. He realizes has never learned his maid's name, despite months together. Inside the carriage, Adrien directly asks her name. She introduces herself as Adilia, Byron, head bowed respectfully. Adrien's expression shifts. Bayer in a house barely clinging to nobility. A memory surfaces. He's met her kind before in a distant age. Ancient times when monsters roamed and humans were slaughtered without mercy. But saviors emerged, raising humanity to become the ruling race. 5 legendary heroes stood together, called the Prince Elector. One of those 5 heroes, a red-cloaked warrior, steps forward. Her name echoes through history. Gruhan. She stands with blade drawn, asking a profound question. What you and I will do after this war ends, she asks her companion. A sharp green eye watches the battlefield with fierce determination. Steel clashes as the final battle begins. A warrior launches herself skyward against an enormous orc. The king of the orcs falls to the legendary blade. Her sword cuts through darkness with blazing golden light. The iron-blooded sword Magus. Agnes Byrne stands victorious. A knowing smile crosses her lips as battle conclude. The battlefield littered with fallen enemies. Someone mutters about people like her. Her eyes blaze with otherworldly golden power. Agnes confronts a scavenger furious they followed her for scrap. A furious red-haired woman screams accusations, her blade blazing with righteous anger. She continues her tirade, calling someone filthy beasts unworthy of their position. A sword pulses with blue mana energy as its wielder grips it with trembling resolve. Prince Adrien clutches his head, grimacing at the unpleasant memories flooding back. He mutters about the Byrne lineage, sweat beating at his temple. Adilia clutches her chest, bewildered how events spiraled into such chow. A guard announces their arrival, snapping Adrien from his troubled thought. A knight in gleaming armor peers into the carriage, awaiting the prince's response. Adrien steps out with a smirk, remarking on the impeccable timing of their arrival. His boots strike the cobblestones with deliberate, confident step. He points sharply at Adilia, warning her they'll discuss matters later. Adilia stands frozen in confusion, question marks swirling around her bewildered expression. A silver-haired figure calls out, cheerfully approaching with an unsettling smile. Bernard of House Eli kneels formally, greeting Prince Adrien with practiced grace. Bernard expresses relief at Adrien's safety, while Adrien internally questions this descendant's punkish appearance. Bernard remarks on Adrien's dramatic weight loss, his eyes narrowing with curiosity. Another nobleman watches with predatory interest, murmuring, "Your Highness," with hidden intent. Bernard asks if Adrien remains unwell, but the prince claims he's glad he came. Adrien grins dangerously, thanking Bernard for making today promise entertainment. Bernard freezes, sensing something shifted in the prince's demeanor. Inside the club, nobles gossip shamelessly about scandalous ladies and their antics. A woman endures unwanted advances while men comment crudely on her appearance. The grand hall reveals decadent nobles lounging among bottles and excès. Bernard observes curiously. The delinquent prince should be drunk and causing chaos by now. Adrien swirls his wine thoughtfully, sensing the atmosphere has changed entirely. Prince Adrien sits with wine as a stranger approaches from behind. A brown-haired nobleman laughs, greeting the prince informally. The man spreads rumors about the flower of Iron Lion Castle. Adrien remains silent, his expression unreadable. Another guest claims had already set his sights on the lady. The nobleman describes how beautiful she appeared in her armor. He inquires whether Adrien has any sister. Adrien confirms he does, and the man seems pleased by the. Adrien's demeanor shifts suddenly. Without warning, Adrien strikes the man. The nobleman cries out in agony. He crashes to the floor amid shattered glass. The surrounding guests recoil in shock. A white-haired companion watches with growing alarm. Adrien remarks it's fortunate the man's bloodline will survive. The assault continues relentlessly. Room descends into disorder as bodies scatter. Adrien announces the man's sister now inherits the family title. He winds up for another blow. His fist connects with the man's jaw. A blonde woman and blue-haired man stare in disbelief. Two observers look deeply unsettled by the violence. Someone seizes a piece of cloth. Adrien seizes the man's collar, demanding an explanation. The battered man whispers for Adrien to listen carefully. Adrien declares he won't tolerate being treated like a delinquent. The gathered nobles stare in utter confusion at his word. Adrien's fist connects violently with a nobleman's face. Bodies crash through furniture as chaos erupts in the hall. Adrien stands victorious while shocked onlookers watch in silence. A beaten nobleman lies groaning on the ornate carpet. Bernard of Eli drops to his knees, trembling before Adrien. Adrien grins, darkly reminding them he promised fun today. Bernard panics, wondering what triggered the prince's sudden violence. Adrien coldly orders someone to summon the royal knight. Bernard scrambles to obey, desperate to survive this nightmare. The grand hall falls silent as everyone freezes in place. Adrien surveys the room with an expression of cold contempt. He commands the ladies present to step outside immediately. A dark-haired nobleman sweats, nervously sensing danger approaching. Someone's feet shuffle backward, trying to escape unnoticed. Adrien's gaze locks onto the retreating nobleman with precision. He offers a choice: leave as a lady or stay. Adrien stands over another fallen nobleman, dominance absolute. The remaining guests gasp in horror at the brutality. Heavy footsteps echo as Adrien advances toward the remaining group. He condemns them for showing no respect to a prince. A nobleman laughs defiantly, mocking Adrien to his face. Adrien's eyes narrow, his knight was insulted, and that crosses the line. Adrien turns his back, asking what crime applies here. The knight declares their crime: insulting royalty itself. Nobles recoil in terror as reality crashes down. Adrien's knight warns this borders on outright treason. The knight awaits Adrien's command. Who shall kneel first? Adrien's smile widens with dangerous anticipation. Adrien's answer is simple. All of them. The king confronts Adrien about the chaos he's unleashed. 14 noble heirs dragged before the throne in chains. The king demands Adrien understand the weight of his action. Punishment must be severe, yet the political fallout concerns the crown. Adrien mocks the king's hesitation over mere backlash. These families have already abandoned their own children as lost cause. Adrien orders letters sent to the right people. The king knows exactly who Adrien means. Siblings of those arrested will handle their house's internal problem. Adrien challenges the king. Am I wrong about thee? The king dismisses the court, demanding Adrien explain himself. Adrien reassures someone he means no harm. A trembling girl questions what crime she has committed. Adrien stands before her, the narration hinting at his troubled past. Adilia reflects on her family's precarious noble standing. Ancient glory fades. Dragons and monsters vanish into legend. Adrien's expression shifts as he contemplates what's been lost. Adelia's true nature emerges. Warrior instincts buried beneath her timid exterior. Adrien's shock at discovering her hidden capability. Adrien stares at the trait list, shocked by the dangerous combination before him. Butcher loses her mind at blood. Battle maniac craves endless combat. Adilia protests, overwhelmed, claiming such honor is far too much for her. Adrien clutches his head. Unmatched talent, yet nothing to restrain her madness. He questions whether unleashing such insanity upon the world is justifiable. Adrien stands in the grand hall, Adilia waiting silently behind him. Despite his doubts, he resolves to at least attempt this dangerous path. S-rank swordsmanship, A-rank mana sensing, extraordinary aptitudes paired with volatile trait. Adrien spots an exploitable weakness. Slave mentality craves serving a master. He turns to Adilia Byron and demands she swear loyalty to him. Adilia clasps her hands, bewildered by his sudden shocking command. Adrien insists she become his knight. Swear the oath here and now. Caretaker excels at nurturing others. Slave mentality breeds passive dependence. Adrien reminds her struggling house. Hell take responsibility for her family's survival. In exchange, she must serve him as master with absolute devotion. Adrien offers to hold the reins if she cannot control her own madness. Adelia's eyes widen. Will he truly protect House Byron from ruin? He promises capital visits anytime, removing her final barrier to acceptance. Adilia kneels, formally swearing loyalty as first daughter of House Byron. Adrien watches silently as she pledges her life entirely to his service. His hand reaches toward her head, sealing their binding contract. Adrien commands unconditional obedience. She must follow every order without question. Adilia accepts with trembling devotion, her eyes glistening with tearful resolve. Adrien stares into darkness, wondering, did he truly make the right choice? Whispers spread through shadows. The notorious prince forced a knight's loyalty through questionable means. Rumors spread about Adrien beating nobles and jailing them. Adilia bows her head, now named his personal knight. Adrien wonders when people started caring about him. He defends taking only one personal knight. The king scolds Adrien for his reckless behavior. A dark-haired noble calls him pathetic, questioning his bet. A pink-haired noble mocks Adrien's choice of a maid. Adrien sighs, frustrated by how quickly gossip travel. A servant announces the queen's arrival, alarming Adrien. The queen confronts him, disappointed, has reverted to old way. Someone smiles, knowingly suggesting this might be better. The queen discusses marriage, making Adrien nervous. She declares she'll select his bride this time. Adrien sits in silence as she depart. Adilia asks if she'll receive mana ability. Adrien confirms she'll unlock a unique form of mana. Blue energy radiates from Adrien as he mentions the sword Magu. Golden energy surrounds Adilia as he recalls everything. Adilia is engulfed in golden flames, legendary power awakening. Her eyes begin glowing with golden intensity. Golden energy coalesces into a heart pulsing with power. Adilia senses the mana flowing through her. Adrien watches as the mana engraves itself into her. His own eyes flash golden, recognizing the transformation. Adelia's mana heart fully forms, and she gasps at the sensation. Adrien demonstrates mana heart refinement, golden energy swirling around Adilia. Adilia gasps in shock, calling out to her prince. Adrien collapses from exhaustion. Adilia rushes to check on him. He claims he's merely tired, leaving Adilia questioning his motive. Adrien dismisses her, telling her she's free to leave. Adilia stares at him intently, prompting his confused response. She pledges eternal service, bowing deeply before her master. Adrien smirks, reminding her of his authority over her. Adilia happily acknowledges him as her hind. Adrien turns away, a subtle smile crossing his face. Adelia's gaze intensifies as Adrien speaks quietly. Days pass, and a knight arrives with news about Bernard Eli. Bernard remains imprisoned by palace guards, isolated until the trial. Adrien asks if he must attend learning royals stand above court. Adrien expresses visible relief at this revelation. He remarks on the trial's escalation while Adilia polishes silver. Adrien inquires about Adilia's recent condition and well-being. He confirms her mana heart has finally stabilized completely. Adrien commands her to train alongside him from now on. He orders her to change and meet him at the yard. Adrien tells her to drop the rag. She's a knight now. Adrien demonstrates sword forms alone in the training yard. He questions what Adilia is currently doing there. A dark-haired knight interrupts, clarifying he wasn't speaking to Adrien. The knight points toward Adilia, revealing she was his target. Adrien defends his choice, telling the knight about making Adilia a knight. The knight scoffs, questioning if Adrien thinks knighthood is something cheap. Knight scolds Adrien's recklessness. Adrien demands why he keeps interfering. Adilia arrives breathless. The knight stutters nervously at Adrien's presence. Adilia collapses, exhausted but proud, having completed all 10 laps. Adrien and the knight watch silently as Adilia struggles to recover. Adilia apologizes for causing trouble. Adrien hands her something reassuringly. Adrien smiles, announcing he'll teach her basic sword stances today. Adrien demonstrates proper posture and swing technique with fluid precision. Adrien tells Adilia to try it herself, handing her the sword. Adilia nervously assumes the stance, asking if she's doing it correctly. Adilia's eye suddenly glows with an eerie, predatory intensity. She swings with terrifying speed, blue energy trailing her blade. The dark-haired knight watches in shock, sweat dripping down his face. Adrien stands frozen, stunned. She copied his technique after one viewing. Adilia asks if her stance is correct. Adrien hesitates, bewildered. Adrien panics, internally realizing she could surpass him if he slack. A dark memory surfaces, Adelia's slave mentality bending to stronger force. Adrien imagines Adilia overtaking him, her blade gleaming with cold intent. Adrien notices something, his expression shifting to quiet concern. The knight grins, darkly impressed by Adelia's extraordinary natural talent. Knight grabs Adrien, aggressively demanding to know his intention. Adrien shouts back, furiously demanding the knight explain his action. The knight smirks, coldly questioning what Adrien could possibly offer that girl. Adrien draws his sword, its blade crackling with blue mana energy. The dark-haired knight declares Adrien cannot handle Adelia's power. Blue mana crackles around Adrien's collar as tension mount. Adrien recalls how the old Adrien would have trembled and retreated, his eyes narrow with resolve. He refuses to be that coward. Blue mana erupts violently from his body in swirling torrent. Adrien's voice cuts through the chaos with absolute certainty. Visions of legendary monsters flash. The Giant King's terrifying visage. The Mad Dragon's feral hunger burns through Adrien's memory. And Grimoire, the demonic sword that devoured countless soul. Adrien's eyes shift to crimson as red mana engulfs him. The dark-haired knight watches warily as power radiates from Adrien. Adrien faces his opponent directly, Adilia standing behind him. His declaration rings out. Adilia belongs to him alone. Adrien warns the knight not to look at her or covet her. His expression darkens. He despises anyone taking what's high. The dark-haired knight stands firm while Adilia watches silently. Adrien's eye glows, crimson mana surging beyond control. Reality blurs around him. His consciousness begins slipping away. He floats through an endless void, feeling nothing but empty. Cold darkness consumes his senses as he questions what this means. A massive demonic sword looms above him. Grimoire awaken. Dark tendrils reach for Adrien, threatening to devour his weak body. Adrien's eye snaps open. Something stirs within him. He reaches his limit as blue and red energies collide violently. Adrien reaches downward, desperately fighting against the sword's hunger. Blue mana energy swirls around Adrien in the training yard. Adrien states one ordinary knight saves 10 soldiers live. Count Balarhard shouts one outstanding knight saves 100 soldiers. The knight claims Adilia could save 1,000 soldiers or more. Adrien contemplates whether this represents true conviction. The Northern Frontier Commander's great cause is revealed in snow. Adrien dismissively tells the knight his words don't matter. Count Balarhard argues Adelia's potential to save countless lives. Adilia declares her loyalty belongs entirely to Adrien. The knight stands speechless at her unwavering devotion. Adrien smirks, satisfied his soul sacrifice secured her obedience. Adrien tells his uncle he has nothing left to teach. Adrien warns his uncle to stop meddling in his affair. The knight reluctantly concedes with a quiet acceptance. Adilia trains with her sword as the sun sets. Adrien finds amusement watching his uncle flustered and helpful. Golden mana energy suddenly ignites around Adelia's blade. The knight's eyes widen in absolute shock and disbelief. Adrien questions whether Adilia already mastered sword song technique. Adrien applauds her progress, worried she might surpass him. Adilia smiles warmly pleased with her achievement. The knight accuses Adrien of teaching her mana heart formation. Adrien confirms, defiantly challenging his uncle to object. The knight fumes. One person learning such tricks was enough. Adrien stands in shadow, his expression cold and unreadable. The dark-haired knight orders Adrien to leave immediately. He rages about wasted potential and a ruined path. A blonde knight tells Carls to escort Adrien out. Adrien refuses help, turning to leave on his own. A servant girl questions if this is truly the prince's trick. Adrien denies it firmly, his expression unreadable. The girl wonders why the count would say such thing. Adrien explains the count simply doesn't understand the truth. The dark-haired knight speaks of forgotten mana heart knowledge. Adrien laments how they discarded such power like trash. He promises the girl will witness true mana heart power soon. A wooden sword strikes with explosive blue energy. Adrien stands calmly, blue lightning crackling around him. The dark-haired knight demands Adrien prove his claim. He declares hell use only a single ring's power. Adrien grips his wooden sword, questioning the stake. He asks if winning means granting any wish. The knight offers family secret techniques as a reward. Adrien smirks. That's not what he truly wants. Both warriors charge, shouting to begin their duel. The knight notes Adrien targets the neck immediately. He compliments Adrien's vicious sword style from years past. Their wooden swords clash with tremendous force. Adrien's eyes glow intensely blue with mana. The duel erupts into a flurry of devastating strike. Wooden swords collide violently as the duel intensifies between uncle and nephew. The knight smirks through green lightning, taunting Adrien's weakening attack. Adrien grimaces, sweat dripping as his arms tremble from the impact. Adrien slides backward across the training yard, barely maintaining his footing. The knight stands tall, coldly asking if Adrien has already surrendered. Adrien catches his breath, smiling reluctantly at his uncle's overwhelming strength. Blue lightning crackles around the knight as he waits to drain mana. Adrien's mana heart pulses weakly. He knows hell lose if this continue. Adrien's expression shifts, a strange realization crossing his mind mid-battle. The knight frowns in confusion as Adrien mentions something from 400 years ago. A vision of ancient knights wielding mana hearts against impossible monster. A legendary warrior unleashes devastating blue energy across a dark battlefield. But one useful new technique changed everything the knights once believed. Mana chains appeared. Everyone thought them superior to the old mana heart. The knight demands answers, but Adrien calmly states he disagrees entirely. Adrien declares the weakness was never the mana heart, only its wielder. Adrien's eyes gleam as he asks his uncle about war epic. The knight scoffs, saying this is a battlefield, not a poetry reading. Adrien grins, knowingly admitting he expected exactly that dismissive response. Adrien reminds the knight he once called mana heart's cheap mercenary trick. The knight offers Adrien time to recover his tone, dripping with condescension. Adrien refuses, coldly, blue energy surging as he speaks of a knight's path. Adrien raises his sword, declaring 100 victories are his pride and strength. The knight's eyes widen in shock at Adrien's shocking revelation about those victories. Adrien strikes with blazing blue energy, achievements forever engraved within his mana heart. Blue mana erupts as Adrien's achievements forge a war epic. A common rank war epic, Song of Sparring, is born. Adrien's blue eyes gleam as the song awakens within him. The true power of the mana heart reveals itself. Song of Sparring activates blue energy swirling around Adrien. The knight admits he cannot defeat a mana chain user. Adrien strikes with blazing blue mana, his blade cutting through air. Their swords collide with tremendous force, energy crackling between them. Ring mana forces mana heart energy into dangerous backlash. The knight grimaces as Adrien's power overwhelms his defense. Dark-haired knight smirks, recognizing Adrien's raw talent. He compliments Adrien's brute force and endurance in battle. But Adrien's expression shifts. Something deeper stirs within. Adrien, sparring over 100 times, forged this song, power honed specifically to counter mana chain technique. Adrien withstood 1,000 waves across 100 bouts. Blue energy surges through Adrien's hair as power build. That is the true power of Song of Sparring. The blue energy blade hums with devastating potential. Adrien readies himself. Victory now seems within reach. A massive explosion erupts from their violent clash. Their blades meet again in another thunderous exchange. Adrien presses forward with relentless, savage aggression. His eyes burn with fierce, unyielding determination. The knight stares in shock. Adrien refuses to fall. Adrien's boot slams down, blue lightning erupting from the impact. Adrien swings his sword violently, energy crackling as he presses the attack. The blonde knight skids back, blue mana flaring around his defensive stance. Vale Balorhart steadies himself, his expression hardening with grim resolve. Both fighters pause across the courtyard, mana swirling around them. Adrien's eyes narrow, coldly declaring not all mana hearts are equal. Vale's boot drags across stone as Adrien's force pushes him backward. Adrien descends with crushing overhead strike, blue energy splitting the air. The impact explodes outward, Vale barely catching the blow on his blade. Adrien stands tall, acknowledging Vale's surprising resilience with faint respect. Vale kneels bloodied and exhausted, admitting common rank power isn't enough. Vale plants his sword, beginning a tale from 400 years ago. Vale's eyes burn with conviction. The knights made a grave mistake. Flashback reveals a legendary warrior standing atop countless fallen enemy. The ancestors left no foes behind their feats, becoming untouchable legend. A warrior falls through crimson skies forgotten by history. Dragons and giant kings fade into nothing more than far-fetched myth. A cartoonish dragon lies defeated. Legends reduced to children's story. Knights fought only humans, their victories limited to mere dozen. Without worthy foes, their ranks stagnated against a new wave of threat. Vale scoffs at mana chains, declaring such techniques never reach transcendence. Adrien stares blankly, asking if Vale has been day drinking. Vale Balorhart's face hardens, his full name revealed with deadly intent. Dark energy swirls as Vale tells the foolish knight how much has lost. A crimson eye blazes in the darkness. Something ancient awaken. Crimson energy erupts as Adrien issues his dark ultimatum. Shadowy tendrils coil around his sword, promising devastating retribution. Adrien channels forbidden power, invoking the dragon-slaying technique. The knight's eyes widen as blazing blood surges within him. Adrien's voice rings out, singing the ancient dragon-slaying melody. Blue mana ignites along his blade, humming with lethal intent. Red energy intensifies as Adrien prepares to rend dragon scale. He launches forward with terrifying speed and murderous precision. The dark-haired knight blocks, desperately, blue lightning crackling violently. Their powers collide in a blinding explosion of light. Adrien's eye widens in horror. The mana threatens to devour him. A brilliant blue energy sphere expands outward uncontrollably. The explosion tears through the training yard with devastating force. Adrien is hurled backward, crashing hard into the ground. Dust slowly clears, revealing the dark-haired knight standing firm. Adrien sits dazed and silent, processing his defeat. Adrien questions the knight about breaking his one-ring promise. The knight admits he used all 4 rings of power. He confesses he still couldn't stop Adrien's blade from cutting. Adrien sits quietly, staring at the ground in contemplation. Heart mana should be inferior to chain mana, yet Adrien defied it. Adrien addresses his opponent formally as Count Vale Balorhart. The knight's face twists with shock. You lost, he realizes. Dark demonic imagery swirls, hinting at deeper powers awakening. A mysterious blue gem glows within a cross-shaped relic. Adrien's eyes widen in shock, sweat dripping as realization hits him. His hand clenches violently, energy bursting from his grip. Adrien collapses onto his bed, moonlight streaming through the window. His fingers dig into the sheets, mana crackling uncontrollably. Adrien grimaces in pain, muttering about the damn war epic. Crimson energy engulfs him, the price for forcing dragon-slaying power. His eye glows red as the mythic song awakens within. Blue mana flickers around Adrien, body wrecked but worth the cost. The first war epic he wove from 100 victory. A blue spectral figure rises, having withstood 1,000 wave. Adrien smiles confidently as Song of Sparring's rank increase. He sits up in bed, mentioning the 3rd prince's match. His maid gasps with relief. You're finally awake. Guards explain his collapse caused chaos. The queen was furio. Adrien smirks, saying she deserved it, then asks about Balorhart. The maid reports Count Balorhart demanded to know when he woke. Adrien lies back lazily. Don't tell him yet, he needs rest. His chest heaves, sweat beating as his body trembles. A blue silhouette warns of the horrific price for overusing war epic. Reality shatters. Memories jumble, trapping you in a warped world. Adrien shudders at the thought of being trapped in sword memory. A vision of Agnes Byron, the legendary swordswoman wreathed in flame. Adrien eats calmly, learning he can inherit her war epic. The maid stares in awe. Her ancestor was truly mighty. Adrien warns she must grow far more to wield that song. Adrien questions Adilia about her sword training ambition. Adilia stammers, caught off guard by his direct question. She gazes down, contemplating the possibility of knighthood. Adilia grows flustered, unable to finish her thought. Adrien departs, leaving her to gather her words for later. Adilia approaches Adrien at the table with quiet determination. She clasps her hands, pledging herself as his sword. Adrien's eyes widen in shock at her bold declaration. A knight sounds a charged trumpet, beginning an epic. Armies march across open plains as legends unfold. Some epics begin not with battle, but with vow. Golden energy surrounds Adilia as she devotes her life. Adrien watches in disbelief as her war epic manifests. The energy reaches Adrien, binding their fates together. A golden tree of power erupts from their connection. Adrien receives a new war epic song of dominion. The song is revealed as shackling two souls together. Adilia calls out, unaware of what she's created. Adrien realizes this unexpected bond could prove useful. He smiles, understanding Hes the target of her song. Adilia smiles, knowing her growth will strengthen them both. Adrien thanks her sincerely for the unexpected gift. Adilia blushes deeply at his heartfelt gratitude. They stand together, uncertain what form this benefit take. Days pass, and a grand castle looms ahead. Ian slumps in his chair, exhausted after the intense duel. A knight and woman watch him with worried expression. Someone asks if Ian feels better. He responds uncertainly. Ian thinks those who hate his body are easier to handle. The woman reflects that those caring for the original owner feel awkward. A voice asks if Ian resents his uncle. The woman urges Ian to let go of bitterness toward his uncle. She dramatically insists he must be lying about not feeling bitter. Ian strokes his chin deep in contemplation. Flashback reveals Ian shattered his uncle's pride and life's truth. What Ian planted that day was a devastating heart demon. Ian muses his uncle will either rise higher or lose everything. The woman explains his uncle is clumsy with people but thinks highly of Ian. She reveals his uncle personally persuaded the king himself. Ian's eyes widen. His confinement ended early because of his uncle. The woman suggests his uncle suffered after Ian's release incident. Ian touches his chin, processing this revelation. He wonders why that man would go so far for him. An elderly scholar named Niccolo Marchudil introduces himself. Ian flatly refuses something with visible irritation. The knight and woman exchange concerned glance. Ian collapses dramatically, questioning why he must study at all. The scholar declares those who don't learn are no different from beasts. Ian angrily accuses the scholar of calling him a beast. The scholar smiles, proposing a test if Ian truly knows everything. Old scholar proposes a conversation testing the prince's true ability. Adrien smirks, confidently, finding the proposition rather appealing. Adrien slams his fist, triumphantly agreeing wholeheartedly with the term. Adrien warns about trusting people too much. They'll climb over you. The old man slides a book across the desk, piquing Adrien's curiosity. Adrien reads about rulers and subjects sharing a contractual bond. Adrien nods, thoughtfully understanding relationships require mutual give and take. The sun sets over the castle as their lesson continues peacefully. Old man gathers his books, preparing to conclude their session. They agreed to continue their discussion tomorrow, parting on good term. Adrien laughs cheerfully, clearly enjoying his unexpected education. Adrien suddenly realizes with shock. This was just a normal lesson. Adrien stares in disbelief, processing what just happened. The old man chuckles to himself, noting the first prince's cunning nature. Scholar walks through the palace halls, deep in contemplation. Adrien lies upside down, staring blankly at nothing. Adrien flops dramatically onto his bed, complaining of crushing boredom. Adrien sits by the window, wondering if he's been living too intensely. A servant announces Sir Vale Ballarhard has arrived to visit. Adrien's eyes light up with excitement. Finally, a guest arrives. Adrien eagerly tells the maid to let his visitor inside immediately. Adrien stands, proudly noting it's been days since their duel. Adrien's expression suddenly shifts, sensing something troubling ahead. Vale appears troubled. The heart demon Adrien planted still haunts him. Vale remains silent as Adrien offers a quiet, unexpected apology. Adrien apologizes sincerely, admitting he broke his promise and wounded Vale deeply. Vale reveals his true injury came from forcing the dragon-slaying song too far. A dark-haired man suggests Adrien's incident made things difficult for Vale as well. Vale demands Adrien state his wish, offering anything as repayment. Vale offers his arm or eye. Adrien dismisses the dramatic gesture entirely. Adrien muses that Vale could have been a swordmaster if not for his heart demon. Adrien decides to be generous and names his price for forgiving. Adrien begins stating his wish with a confident, determined expression. Adrien asks Vale to accompany him on a trip together. Vale reminds Adrien his confinement is already over. He can leave freely. Adrien clarifies he wants to travel far beyond the capital proper. Vale stands in stunned silence at the unexpected simple request. Vale explains scheduling takes time due to the upcoming banquet. Vale agrees to contact Adrien once plans are finalized. Carl the knight appears beside Adrien, watching silently with curiosity. Adrien notices Carl's strange stare and demands an explanation. Carl admits surprise. He expected Adrien to demand something far harsher. Adrien reflects that Vale broke his promise, making this chance rare. Carl admits feeling pity, seeing the stubborn old man so humbled. Carl laughs at Adrien's reaction, noting he seems more relaxed lately. Carl addresses Adrien, formally catching his attention with sudden seriousness. A maid arrives breathlessly, announcing the awaited letter has finally come. Adrien examines the crimson wax seal on the mysterious envelope. The letter's contents glow with ethereal blue energy as words materialize. A lightning-wreathed woman appears, announcing her recent small achievement. A mysterious letter arrives, promising a visit soon from Arwin. Ian reads the letter with a grin. Perfect timing indeed. 5 days pass, and the day of departure finally arrive. Ian leans from the carriage, asking about the territory ahead. His uncle glances back, remarking how Ian can never sit still. Ian bounces excitedly as his uncle promises to explain everything. The county of Eller, kingdom's greatest producer of arms and weapon. Iron mines supply quality ore refined by a legendary smith's guild. Over half the royal family's arms come from Eller alone. Ian grins. It's time he found a sword truly his own. He recalls being forbidden from receiving any weapons by royal order. Ian's face freezes in shock at the painful memory. If he wants a proper weapon, he must seek it outside. Ian's expression hardens, a determined glint in his sharp eye. His uncle smirks, claiming Hez delicate despite his fearsome appearance. The 20-day journey begins through forests and open road. Route passes through Ellen County, then onward to Iron Lion Castle. The caravan presses forward, knights flanking the carriage steadily. Ian sits trapped inside, forced to endure 3 endless days. He glares at his maid companion. Conversation proves utterly dull. The maid offers only yes or no answers, nothing more. Ian sighs. Better to check his mana heart than waste time. After using Song of Dragon Slaying, his mana heart lies completely drained. Blue energy swirls as Ian begins refilling his depleted reserve. The carriage rattles as magic pulses outward. Knights sense something stirring. Adrien gathers mana specks, filling his empty mana heart with swirling blue energy. A massive vortex of brilliant blue mana spirals within his inner realm. Adrien's eyes widen in shock. Something unexpected is happening inside him. He stares at his enormous mana heart, bewildered by its sudden growth. A system message reveals he glimpsed immense will from forcing Song of Dragon Slaying. Blue energy erupts from Adrien's chest as the mana heart permanently expands. His body's constitution transforms significantly, now capable of enduring far more mana. Chains shatter around him. Adrien has reached the realm of sword expert. A lock breaks apart with brilliant light, lifting restrictions on recovered ability. Adrien's third eye and third ear authorities have greatly improved. His maid stares in shock as Adrien sits motionless on the couch, emanating faint energy. Chibi Adrien celebrates wildly, pumping his fists in pure excitement. Adrien grins confidently, declaring he has taken another step forward. The scene shifts to the Grand County of Ellen, a magnificent estate under blue ski. Adrien arrives at the county, greeted by servants with formal reverence. Edgar and Torrance of House Ellen bow deeply, introducing themselves to the first prince. The group stands outside as the Ellens offer to show Adrien to his room first. Adrien activates his enhanced third eye, scanning the surroundings intently. Ancient swords float in his vision. Flashy relics, useless in real combat. The group walks through a hall lined with ornate weapons on display. Adrien looks disappointed. What he seeks clearly isn't among these treasure. Adrien turns to Torrance, asking about a smith's guild in the territory. Adrien requests to visit the guild personally, his tone leaving no room for refusal. Close-up of footsteps. Adrien strides forward with purposeful determination. Torrance warns Adrien that smiths tend to be rough, stubborn folk as they walk together. Vale explains the blunt, focused nature of the master smith. Adrien's eye widens, captivated by the intense heat and sound. A massive hammer strikes, sending a shockwave of fire and spark. Vale warns Adrien about the forge's overwhelming intensity. Adrien stands amidst the clanging metal, mesmerized by the rhythm. Vale looks at Adrien, concerned by his silent, transfixed state. Flames roar and bellows hiss as the smiths work with fervor. Adrien walks forward, drawn deeper into the heart of the forge. A powerful smith hammers glowing steel with immense focused strength. Adrien watches, sweat beading, utterly absorbed by the craft. One particular hammer strike rings out with perfect, resonant clarity. Adrien stands before the mastersmith, the sound echoing in him. The mastersmith pauses, his powerful form silhouetted by the fire. A close-up of Adrien's eye reflects the dancing flame. A vision of a golden sword appears, his first memory. Adrien is snapped back, tears of sweat and emotion on his face. A young attendant notices his distress, asking if he's all right. The attendant gently wipes Adrien's face, concerned by his state. Adrien whispers the word smith lost in the memory's echo. He turns away, composing himself as the forge's noise continue. The guildmaster Saxon formally greets the prince and his party. Adrien acknowledges the introduction, his gaze still distant. Suddenly, a smith ignores the greeting, hammering with fierce focus. The guildmaster shouts, furious at the smith's disrespect. Adrien grabs the master's hand, silencing him with a cold command. Adrien's cold gaze silences the furious guildmaster instantly. Glowing steel radiates intense heat upon the waiting anvil. Adrien notices the smith was interrupted mid-work and dragged away. He warns that letting the steel cool risks extinguishing the forge itself. Workers scramble frantically, grabbing tools and pumping the bellows urgently. Adrien sits with arms crossed, observing the chaos unfold. He stands contemplatively, watching the smith work with quiet intensity. The old master smith hammers with fierce, unwavering determination. Sparks erupt as the hammer strikes the glowing metal. Adrien watches, captivated by the smith's relentless focus. Flames dance in Adrien's eye, reflecting the forge's heat. Adrien stands amidst the flames, drawn deeper into the craft. The metal glows brighter as it's shaped under the hammer. A vision appears. Adrien sees a smith working in his mind. Confusion washes over Adrien's face as an unfamiliar feeling stirs within him. Outside, two men discuss the smith who forges only to destroy his work. One questions if the swords are flawed. The other shrugs uncertainly. The master smith is renowned. Every blade he creates is flawless. Perfect swords line the walls, yet he melts them all down. The man reveals the smith has barely slept, working obsessively for weeks. Adrien listens with growing concern for the aging craftsman's well-being. Adrien reflects on what defines a true craftsman's dedication. Days pass as the prince returns to the forge each morning. The old smith continues his relentless work without pause. Adrien watches silently, sensing something profound in the craftsman's devotion. The atmosphere in the guild hall was surprisingly calm, a stark contrast to the tension they'd expected. Night fell over the estate, the quiet before the final day. The day of the prince's departure arrived, marked by the relentless echoing sound of hammering. Adrien watched the master smith work, his expression unreadable. The powerful smith struck the glowing steel, his focus absolute. Adrien murmured his regret, hoping to see the masterwork finished. Torrance stood silently behind the prince, a witness to his quiet disappointment. Adrien turned away, the memory of the unfinished sword a deep regret. The time to leave had come, with a farewell banquet scheduled for that evening. Torrance offered a weary smile, understanding the unspoken reasons for the delay. Everyone had hoped the prince could witness the completed sword before his departure. A servant burst in, shouting urgently for the prince. Adrien paused at the doorway, his attention caught by the commotion. The servant announced the master had finally completed his sword. A brilliant light pierced the sky as Adrien and his party rushed outside. The master smith stood silhouetted against the dawn, holding the finished blade. He gripped the sword's hilt, the metal humming with latent power. The blade gleamed, a perfect, radiant weapon forged in fire. Smith knelt before Adrien, presenting the sword with profound reverence. Adrien examined the flawless steel, seeing his own reflection in its surface. He accepted the weapon, the weight feeling both familiar and new. Torrance and the maid looked on, stunned by the sudden turn of event. Adrien's voice echoed with the memory of the forging rituals. Word. He held the sword aloft, its form embodying the promise of a king. Gazing into the polished blade, Adrien asked the final crucial question. The master smith presents the finished blade, suggesting they call it Dämmerung. Sword gleams against twilight skies. Dawn or dusk, its meaning shifts with perspective. Adrien smiles, warmly impressed by the old man's unexpected eloquence. The smith exhales deeply, his strength finally spent after the forging. Adrien catches the collapsing smith, just in time, relief washing over him. The exhausted master bows his head, drained from pouring his soul into steel. Adrien orders his guards to inform his uncle. Hell remain here tonight. Torches flicker against the night sky as royal guards stand watch outside. Adrien sits vigil beside the sleeping smith's bed, the new sword leaning nearby. The old man stirs, whispering how the sword found its shape the moment Adrien stood behind him. Adrien tilts his head, questioning whether the smith truly believes the blade chose its own birth. A knowing smile crosses Adrien's lips as he prepares to reveal something. Adrien leans close, his face inches from the old man's, voice dropping to a whisper. The smith's eyes widen in shock, sweat beating at his temple. Adrien confirms quietly. He understood this man's heart all along. The old smith gasps, overwhelmed by the prince's perception. Understanding dawns across the smith's weathered face at last. Adrien extends his hand, requesting to hold the sword once more. Adrien passes the blade to the old man's trembling hand. The smith's fingers tighten around the hilt, feeling the weapon's resonance. Tears glisten in the master's eyes as he begins his final blessing upon the blade. Adrien watches silently, his expression solemn and resolute. A gentle smile touches Adrien's lips, something unspoken in his gaze. Adrien grips the sword firmly, promising it will become as great as its maker envisioned. Adrien's expression shifts. Something unexpected has caught his attention. Adrien sits alone in shadows, contemplating his uncertain path forward. An elderly man with white hair rests peacefully, lost in dream. Guards stand vigil outside a tent beneath the crescent moon. A magnificent sword gleams within its velvet case, radiating brilliance. A nobleman presents the soul-forged blade, warning it may not suit royalty. He offers an enchanted alternative, instead hoping to appease the prince. Adrien examines the weapon with satisfaction, recognizing its quality despite its mid-grade statue. Adrien marvels at receiving both a masterwork and magical blade as tribute. The nobleman boasts of his house's unwavering devotion to the crown. Internally, the nobleman panics. His scheme to retain the master's sword has backfired completely. The military column advances urgently, cavalry and infantry pushing to make up lost time. Adrien stands beside his horse with grim determination, ready for the journey. A dark-haired warrior approaches, observing Adrien's preparations with quiet interest. The warrior reveals he received a secret assignment from the king himself. Adrien realizes his excursion carries hidden costs he hadn't anticipated. They must ride relentlessly to reach Iron Lion Castle before nightfall. Adrien confesses his inability to ride, a shocking admission for nobility. The warrior's expression shifts to stunned disbelief at this revelation. Adrien reflects that as nobility, horsemanship was never something he needed. The journey proves brutal. Adrien suffers terribly from the unfamiliar motion. His horse bucks wildly while he clings desperately to the rein. Chaos erupts as the warrior attempts to manage the unruly mount. Adrien's condition deteriorates, further drained and nauseous from the ordeal. Despite hardships, they reach Iron Lion Castle within a single day. Adrien gazes upon the fortress, finally arriving at his destination. Armored boots march in unison across stone, announcing the prince's formal arrival. York of House Willoughby greets Prince Adrien with a deep bow and armed escort. Adrien smirks, remarking their fighting spirit is way over the top. Two knights exchange glances, one trailing off about the reason behind their fervor. Arwin steps forward, calling the reason obvious with quiet confidence. Adrien whispers to poke at them, a little summoning Arwin by name. Arwin inclines his head, respectfully answering his prince's summon. Arwin kneels on one knee, confessing he counted every day awaiting Adrien's return. Soldiers bristle with barely contained rage as Adrien notes their sharp reaction. Adilia appears suddenly, prompting Adrien to mutter a hasty whoop. Adrien warns that hostility toward him might provoke Adilia into action. Adilia tilts her head, confusion flickering across her delicate feature. She bows obediently while Adrien privately celebrates, nurturing her compliance early. Adrien grins with satisfaction, declaring everything is proceeding as planned. He commands Arwen to follow, flanked by wary soldiers in shadow. Adrien adds that the men behind should come along too. They have much to dispute. Adrien strides forward casually, a wooden practice sword resting across his shoulder. He challenges the assembled Iron Lions to show him their strongest blade. The soldiers exchange nervous glances, silence hanging heavy in the air. Adrien's expression darkens as he begins addressing the burden of his rank. He declares in Leonberger's name that no one will bear responsibility for the outcome. Adrien taunts their lacking courage, calling their reputation mere hot air. A red-haired knight steps forward. Dale of House Denny answers the challenge. Dale humbly claims unworthiness to represent the Iron Lion's sword, yet requests permission. Dale raises his blade defiantly, declaring he would dare stand before the prince. Adrien dismisses a guard's hesitation, claiming he initiated the visit. A guard panics, urging Adrien to be careful as he strides forward. Adrien smirks, confident in his ability to handle what comes next. A knight charges Adrien's sword, crackling with blue lightning. The knight gasps, shocked, as Adrien deflects his strike effortlessly. Adrien slams the knight into the ground, impact shaking the courtyard. Adrien's chest glows faint blue, his expression sharp and focused. Onlookers stare in stunned silence at the fallen knight. A red-haired knight steps forward, introducing himself as Paul Rothheim. Paul swings his sword, but Adrien blocks it with a single motion. Adrien sends Paul flying, the knight crashing into a nearby wall. Adrien stands unscathed, his shirt slightly torn from the fray. Debris rains down from the castle wall courtyard, falling quiet. Adrien surveys the defeated knights, his gaze cold and unyielding. Adrien sighs, muttering this was easier than he expected. Two knights whisper, noting Adrien's desire to spar with full knight. Adrien calls out to Arwin, voice cutting through the silence. Arwin responds, acknowledging Adrien's command with respectful tone. Adrien orders Arwin to accompany him when he returns. Arwen smiles, faintly, expression unreadable as she agrees. Adrien and Arwin stand before gathered knights' tense air. A knight approaches Adrien suggesting a wager to liven things up. Adrien cuts the knight off, refusing to let Arwin be a prize. Adrien proposes a different wager, calling for a sword from Carl. Carl hands Adrien a sword courtyard holding its breath. Adrien draws his blade, proposing a wager with calm confidence. He offers the sword as prize if his opponent prevail. The dark-haired warrior stares stunned by the unexpected offer. Dunham's expression shifts to shock at the prince's boldness. The warrior protests, but Adrien declares their worth beyond any blade. Adrien speaks of a swordmaster's true value with quiet conviction. Dunham grins, accepting the challenge with eager anticipation. He introduces himself as a knight of the Iron Lion Order. Adrien teases him about his rank, leaving Dunham fuming. Dunham reveals his blade's prestigious origin from the legendary master. Adrien smirks, noting the coincidence with knowing amusement. Hands grip sword hilts as both warriors prepare for combat. Adrien reveals he trained under that very same master smith. Dunham's shock deepens. He never heard of a 100th sword. Adrien explains it was the master's final work completed recently. Dunham acknowledges Adrien's dedication to the sword's true path. The knight vows to give this duel everything he possesses. Adrien scoffs at the notion of walking a wrong path. Dunham admits his position was never truly meant for him. A young woman watches anxiously, hands clasped in worry. The dark-haired warrior and armored noble observe the brewing conflict. Adrien's eyes blaze blue. He serves only his people's respect. He tells Adilia to watch closely as power surges within him. Adrien unleashes swirling blue flames, engulfing the courtyard in light. A spectral blue figure manifests. Adrien declares this his true path. A noblewoman with braided hair answers solemnly, yes, as a dark-haired warrior stands behind her. Golden and blue energies clash dramatically as magic surges between two powerful figures. The noblewoman clasps her hands, golden light swirling around her. I will. Do so, your highness. Steam rises from a teacup as a conversation begins. So, two men sit across from each other. How many times have we visited Iron Lion Castle now? 4 times. The dark-haired commander strokes his chin thoughtfully. Silhouettes of princes appear as voices explain the succession crisis and each prince's position. Tea is poured as someone declares. And no matter how poor his reputation, the first prince is still the kingdom's legitimate heir. An angry nobleman points accusingly. That things have gotten this bad. Don't you bear a big share of the blame? A blond man stands isolated in a spotlight. If you, the commander, had supported the first prince even a little, his highness wouldn't be this isolated. The commander is confronted. So why are you acting like the first prince's guardian now? He admits quietly. I did abandon my nephew once. A flashback reveals a bloated, drunken prince on a throne. Far from being a weak king, he could have become a tyrant. That was my nephew. The commander recalls trying to discipline his nephew for being drugged. Are you out of your damn mind? Nephew's face contorts with rage, veins, bulging teeth clenched in fury. The nephew charges at his own uncle with a drawn sword, screaming wildly. A close-up of an eye reflects the nephew's violent attack in its pupil. A poisoned wine bottle and letter float in darkness. When I returned to the north in disappointment, my nephew sent me wine laced with poison. A gloved hand grips the poisoned bottle tightly. The commander drinks the poisoned wine, blue mana burning through it, as I burned that cheap poison with mana. His eyes glow with cold determination. I burned away what little family bond remained. A montage shows the nephew enduring harsh training, growing stronger daily. That delinquent changed. The nobleman challenges the commander. Didn't you say so yourself, that the first prince must never become king? Commander's fist clenches on the table. Boy now is a completely different person from before. The commander leans forward desperately. Give him a chance. At least let him stand at the same starting line as the other princes. Commander bows deeply, his voice breaking. I'm begging you. Brown-haired noble admits confusion about recent change. Dark-haired commander questions who truly transformed. Lord Willowden bursts in demanding attention from the Silver Lion. Both men react with alarm to the first prince's name. They walk toward the castle, discussing Dunham's restraint. Commander reassures that royalty won't be harmed in duel. Dark-haired man warns to worry about the knight instead. Brown-haired noble notices his companion's strange behavior. A knight in white armor crashes violently to the ground. Onlookers cry out in shock at Dunham's defeat. The crowd celebrates as the prince claims another victory. Two nobles stand stunned by the overwhelming display of power. Blue energy crackles around the blonde prince's intense gaze. He calls for the next opponent without hesitation. A green lightning knight recalls his uncle's words about true knighthood. The prince struggles to contain his growing power. Blue lightning strikes with devastating force, proving the warning true. He realizes his current technique won't suffice against stronger foe. Super concentration activates as he prepares his next move. The world falls silent around him. A white-haired knight launches a furious assault. His grip tightens as his body moves beyond his control. Blue flames ignite within his eye, power surging. A familiar sensation returns from his past. Two warriors collide in a spectacular clash of energy. Blue energy erupts violently as Adrien unleashes his full power. A knight crashes backward, overwhelmed by the prince's devastating strike. Adrien catches his breath, sweat dripping from sheer exhaustion. Next, Adrien calls out, hungering for more challenger. His blade cuts through the air with blinding speed. Blue flames dance in Adrien's determined glowing eye. Another knight engages, but Adrien's power proves unstoppable. Steel clashes violently in a thunderous, earth-shaking impact. Adrien's eyes blaze brighter, pushing beyond his limit. The opponent flies backward, defeated by overwhelming force. Adrien presses forward, blue energy swirling around him. Confidence burns in Adrien's expression as victory near. His sword tip touches ground, marking combat's end. Adrien stands victorious, blue aura blazing among fallen knight. Exhaustion overtakes him as he pants heavily. Soldiers cheer wildly at his 5-win streak. Adrien's resolve hardens, ready for greater storms ahead. A new ability awakens. Song of Sparring evolves. Blue radiance explodes outward as power transforms completely. Adrien's skills evolve, his strength reaching new height. I did it, he whispers, barely conscious. His body gives out, collapsing to the ground. A blue-cloaked figure catches him before he falls. The stranger kneels, paying respects to Adrien's victory. Soldiers raise their voices, honoring the first prince's sword. Adrien looks bewildered, questioning the knight's sudden shift in attitude. Arwin explains the knight's simple nature, kneeling before the prince. Two knights discuss what truly motivates their comrades: swords and victory. Adrien is told his earlier look suggested he expected their resentment. A knight philosophizes that an honorable defeat outweighs a tainted victory. Another knight notes Dunham might resent Adrien for taking his prized sword. Adrien kneels, reflecting on how much he thought he had forgotten. He smiles, realizing one fundamental thing about knights has never changed. The scene shows the straightforward, honor-bound spirit of the Iron Lion. Prince's party prepares to depart from the castle courtyard. Adrien from his carriage bids a casual farewell until next time. Count Willodin wishes the prince well, and Adrien returns the sentiment. Adrien suddenly recalls the count's name as he turns to leave. He asks the count to keep the events at the castle a secret. The count questions this, believing the display would be advantageous publicity. Adrien smirks, hinting he has a specific person he wants to surprise. A mysterious figure in red holds a sword, plotting to mess with someone. The traveling party decides to make camp for the night. A knight announces he will scout the surrounding area. Adrien agrees, then finds Arwin silently watching him from the tree. Adrien crosses his arms, confident Arwin will adapt to the situation. Yawning, Adrien heads inside his tent to rest for the evening. A maid greets him cheerfully inside, sparkling with enthusiasm. Adrien internally laments that his S-rank sword genius is still doing chore. The maid nervously asks if she has displeased him as he storms off. Adrien lies awake, reflecting that the Iron Lions weren't what he expected. Using judgment, he sees most knights possess only B-rank swordsmanship talent. In the old days, true sword experts were rare, fading into obscurity. Yet now ordinary warriors reach parity with experts in their 20s. The gap between superhumans and common folk has dramatically narrowed. Adrien sits up sharply, recognizing the phenomenon as mana chain. His uncle once aimed for transcendence, explaining his formidable power. But this era offers barely any chances to surpass extraordinary rank. Adrien crumples his notes. It was all just a tide of time. Sitting alone, he admits he doesn't understand this era at all. A voice praises his attitude from behind him. His uncle appears, saying it's not too late to achieve his dream. The man notes Adrien already won over the Iron Lions uniquely. Uncle Vale smiles warmly, calling it a wise decision. Ian. Adrien freezes in shock. What's wrong with this guy? Adrien stammers, asking if his uncle has gone completely mad. He reminds his uncle about their bet concerning the third prince. Adrien realizes the bet was defeating a double-chain knight. He won. Uncle Vale declares he will keep that promise after all. Adrien stares in complete confusion at his uncle's strange behavior. Vale Balerhard introduces himself as Count and 3rd Legion Commander. He officially declares support for First Prince Adrien Leonberger. Adrien's jaw drops. No way, this can't be happening. Uncle pleads for trust, but Adrien never asked to be king. The declaration spreads like a bomb. Congratulations, echo across the capital. Nobles and officials shower Adrien with congratulations, calling it a joy for the whole kingdom. Newly assigned royal knights and soldiers arrive, causing quite a stir in the castle. New attendants and servants bustle about, sent directly from the palace to serve Adrien. Adrien stands overwhelmed, suddenly thrust into the center of all this attention. Adrien shouts in frustration, demanding they send everyone back immediately. A knight explains they came by royal order and want leave. Adrien demands they at least get out of his sight. Adrien complains it's unbearably noisy, while a maid looks on nervously. A peaceful window scene, curtains gently swaying in the breeze. Adrien finally relaxes in his chair, relieved to have some quiet at last. The door bursts open as someone shouts, "Brother, are you in?" Adrien stares in disbelief as his visitor arrives uninvited. Third, Prince Gillian Leonberger confronts Adrien, accusing him of secretly learning swordsmanship from Count Balerhard and revealing grand ambition. Adrien responds sarcastically, claiming he was trying to preserve Gillian's dignity all along. Gillian points accusingly, threatening to make Adrien pay dearly for deceiving him. Adrien slumps in frustration, comparing his brother to his uncle, both the same. He decides to confront the one who started die. Adrien approaches his uncle, ready to have a serious conversation. Adrien reluctantly agrees to play along temporarily, insisting he doesn't care about the throne. Adrien complains his uncle should have discussed this before throwing him into the political me. A dark vision reveals Balerhard's true purpose, shielding the kingdom from Northern Mountain Monster. His uncle explains that as long as royalty remembers harsh winters, House Balerhard remains safe. Adrien expresses relief, accepting this was bound to happen sooner or later. His uncle questions whether Adrien truly understands an eldest son's fate without the throne. His uncle offers time to accept reality, but delivers a chilling reminder. Adrien stares ahead as his uncle declares an eldest son's legitimacy never disappears unless he die. Adrien sits alone on his bed, resolute. No matter how much time has given, he wants change. Adrien recalls the transcendent power he once possessed, a strength he desperately seeks again. He dismisses the throne as trivial, compared to his true goal of reclaiming that ultimate authority. Yet memories of the grand palace hall surface. His convictions about to be tested. Footsteps echo as someone enters, announced as rightful blood of the Leonberg kingdom. First, Prince Adrien Leonberger makes his grand entrance before the assembled court. Nobles and guests watch with varying expressions as the prince arrives. A mysterious hooded figure observes from the shadows, smiling with hidden intent. Adrien stands formally dressed at the banquet, maintaining his composure. The scene continues with the next story beat. Scene continues with the next story beat. The scene continues with the next story beat. Adrien's eyes narrow with disdain. These are supposed to be the kingdom's finest. What a joke, he thinks, seeing only corruption and weakness among the nobility. The castle's world reveals itself, built upon trampled lives and stolen fortune. Among the masses, Adrien identifies the few truly worth considering. Adrien suddenly spots Taylor and calls out, surprised by his friend's presence. Taylor nervously apologizes, thanking the prince for the invitation. Adrien smiles. These uncorrupted souls will serve as vessels for his plan. A herald suddenly demands everyone's attention with a booming announcement. The ambassador of the Burgundy Empire is declared to be entering the hall. Adrien's expression shifts to shock. What is happening here? The crowd parts as a large figure approaches from above the balcony. Ambassador Cléon de Bourgogne-Montpellier is revealed, a massive, imposing man. The ambassador greets Adrien familiarly, claiming it's been quite a while. Adrien's eyes widen with recognition and something darker. Danger stirs within. Adrien faces the Burgundy clan's assembled knights, their red banners looming ominously overhead. Blue energy crackles around Adrien as he recognizes a name that scarred this nation. Blood suddenly splatters across Adrien's face, shocking the entire hall into silence. Adrien stands frozen, blood dripping down his uniform, eyes wide with disbelief. An elderly nobleman rushes over, apologizing profusely for his clumsing. The man bows deeply, claiming his aging body betrayed him during his greeting. Adrien stares coldly at the apologetic nobleman, suspicion burning behind his eye. A massive nobleman in purple watches the scene unfold with calculated interest. The grand hall falls silent as nobles gather, whispering about the first prince's reaction. Adrien excuses himself to change clothes, his expression dangerously unreadable. A handsome knight with flowing hair offers to escort the prince personally. The butler identifies the knight as Marquis Vielfeld, a powerful noble. Adrien smirks, noting that at least one noble here isn't completely rotten. Adrien walks alone through the night, his mind racing with unanswered questions. A dark-haired man enters Adrien's chambers, having heard about the incident. The man's stern face reveals deep concern as he studies Adrien's expression. He relays that Vielfeld warned Adrien looked ready to cause serious trouble. Adrien admits the Marquis wasn't entirely wrong about his intention. The man questions what Adrien was truly planning, sensing hidden depth. Adrien confesses he isn't reckless, just unable to comprehend this era's corruption. The Burgundy clan's overwhelming power dominates the kingdom's heart unchecked. Atmosphere hangs too tense for peace, too one-sided for friendship. Adrien demands how their country fell into such a pathetic state. The dark-haired man sighs, explaining it's not a particularly special history. He recounts how the kingdom once stood firm against the Empire's countless invasion. A sword strikes the shield as the Empire's power grows. Adrien's eyes widen with sudden realization about what happened. The map reveals a small nation at the continent's edge. Heroic tales transform into legendary stories across generations. Adrien grips his glowing blue sword, ready for war. Blue flames flicker as Adrien acknowledges everything they've lost. Adrien turns to his uncle, announcing he has changed his mind. Uncle Vale questions what Adrien means by this sudden shift. Adrien decides he'll attempt to become king after all. Uncle Vale's face shows shock at Adrien's bold declaration. Adrien accepts potential regret but feels compelled to act. The Grand Palace hosts the second day of the banquet. Adrien straightens his uniform with deliberate, confident precision. Adrien and Vale make their entrance into the banquet hall. Adrien's gaze sharpens with unwavering, steely determination. Nobles cast downward glances, their displeasure clearly evident. Adrien and Vale stand tall as someone critiques their manner. Adrien's expression radiates quiet, unshakable confidence within. A memory surfaces of a friend who once stood before people. That friend stood among refugees, unremarkable, among the displaced. Boots press purposefully into the earth with quiet resolve. The young man steps forward to address those gathered. Blue energy swirls around Adrien as he mirrors that moment. Adrien's eyes perceive what others cannot possibly see. Adrien stands resolute before nobles, blue energy surrounding him. Adrien channels blue energy, declaring he sings the song of king. System warns the song's power exceeds his current ability to bear. Adrien notes this song ranks as hero, not myth level. A sudden realization strikes Adrien mid-thought. He recognizes no existing song matches what he needs right now. Blue energy cascades through the banquet hall. Nobles recoil, sweat beating as they sense the overwhelming power. Adrien stands transformed, blue energy radiating as guests bow before him. He commands everyone to raise their heads with a confident smile. A bead of sweat traces down Adrien's face. A hooded figure in the shadows detects the strange aura. The figure reveals pointed ears, an elf with a knowing smile. Adrien's shock deepens as he realizes someone here knows the ancient song. The elf woman emerges, fully draped in purple robe. Adrien's composure cracks. Why is this particular person here? A memory surfaces of an elf in a sunlit forest described as divine. Another recollection shows an elf with a butterfly, the idealized image. The truth cuts deeper. These beings weaponize beauty itself. High elves possess hero-rank power from birth, silhouetted against crimson ski. Adrien faces the elf woman, recognizing she's no ordinary high elf. She's an elder high elf, nearly 1,000 years old. The elf draws a sword wreathed in dark energy. Adrien's blood runs cold. This is the one who tormented him. His anxiety spikes. She may have identified him through the Song of King. The elf asks if they've met before, sensing something familiar about him. Adrien encounters an elf for the first time at the royal gathering. The silver-haired elf considers Adrien's words with quiet contemplation. Adrien calls the elf a liar, recalling Sigrun's legendary strength. Adrien admits uncertainty about what Sigrun has become over century. Most humans become enchanted upon first seeing an elf's beauty. Those with power sense danger and remain cautious around elf. The elf gestures toward Adrien, preparing to make an observation. Elf touches Adrien's chest, noting he hasn't reached that level. Adrien deflects with a smirk about his unusual aesthetic preference. The elf stares back, clearly unimpressed by Adrien's deflection. Elf bids Adrien farewell, hood drawn, ending their exchange. Adrien reflects that he managed to survive at least one encounter. Adrien dismisses a young girl as too young for consideration. Another woman avoids his gaze, entirely hiding behind someone else. A maid with glowing eyes appears ready for confrontation. Adrien rejects both a small child and an uninterested older woman. The queen sits beside Adrien, visibly exhausted from the proceeding. Advisors lecture Adrien on the qualities needed in a princess consort. The queen grants an audience to the elven delegation. Sigrun approaches the throne with her hooded attendant. Sigrun introduces herself as a member of the Mistletoe clan. Queen Margarita remarks on the rarity of elven visit. Sigrun reveals she knows about the search for a consort. Sigrun declares herself a high elf of noble standing. Adrien stammers, caught off guard by her bold implication. The elf smiles, claiming closeness in age to the prince. Noble guests whisper about elves and their marriage custom. The elf confesses feeling something from the first meeting. Adrien's eyes widen at the declaration of intertwined destiny. Adrien questions whether elves truly speak honestly about fate. The queen gasps at the elf's audacious proclamation. Nobles buzz with excitement about a potential elven alliance. Adrien's expression hardens as whispers fill the grand hall. Adrien suddenly seizes the elf's wrist with force. Adrien drags the elf away, demanding a private conversation. A furious nobleman shouts at the prince's disrespectful behavior. Adrien opens a door, calling the elf by name. Adrien demands the elf reveal their true purpose here. The elf claims friendship between clan and kingdom is all. Adrien addresses the elf by their full elder title. Adrien reveals knowledge of the elf's role as clan executor. Adrien questions whether the elf came to spy or kill. The elf smiles, intrigued by Adrien's surprising knowledge. Adrien remains silent, his expression unreadable and cold. Dark power swirls as Adrien senses the elf's true nature. Adrien realizes the elf glimpsed his soul's ancient past. The elf asks why Adrien is so interested in her. Adrien warns against speaking carelessly before an executor. Adrien demands the elf stop playing games with destiny. The elf watches Adrien with growing curiosity and amusement. Adrien resolves becoming a delicacy worth savoring, not discarding. The silver-haired elf demands to know his true identity. Two elves flank Adrien as he claims pitiful prince statue. Adrien smirks, inviting them to stay and witness his plan. Sigrun studies him with piercing contemplative silver eye. She questions why her superiors sent her on this mission. Understanding dawns her assignment centered entirely around Adrien. Adrien internally notes her unsettling predatory nature remains unchanged. The grand hall stretches before them as guests watch silently. Adrien clasps Sigrun's hand, shocking every onlooker present. They stand together boldly as whispers ripple through the crowd. Adrien addresses the stunned assembly with commanding authority. He announces his engagement to Sigrun, stunning the court. Adrien sweats nervously at her affectionate tone toward him. He calculates how to buy time against her interest. Adrien requests observation period before finalizing the engagement decision. The queen agrees, planning to calculate this arrangement carefully. Sigrun smiles, anticipating her meal ripening to perfection. Adrien's expression hardens with private determination. He resolves building strength to escape this dangerous elf. Someone smashes furniture in explosive, uncontrollable fury. A red-haired nobleman seethes with jealous, burning rage. He screams about Adrien receiving his uncle's sudden support. The jealous prince slams his fist, cursing Adrien's advantage. He grudgingly acknowledges the elf's beauty beyond mortal imagination. The jealous prince grins, recalling his promised duel with Adrien. He plots to maim Adrien without killing him outright. His sinister smile promises a miserable, crushing defeat. A stern, white-haired commander watches the preparations silently. The duel is announced, authorized by the king himself. Adrien yawns dismissively at the lengthy formality. The jealous prince draws his sword, having brought spectator. Adrien stands ready, hoping his opponent won't disappoint. Blue energy crackles as the prince vows to end Adrien. The jealous prince lunges forward with a vicious strike. Adrien's eyes sharpen, abandoning his playful approach entirely. A devastating blue energy slash cuts through the air. The jealous prince crashes down, screaming in agony. Noble crowd watches in stunned, breathless silence. The commander questions if this is truly the first prince. Adrien stands tall, his expression cold and unreadable. The defeated prince lies broken on the stone ground. Commander declares the third prince cannot continue fighting. Adrien is announced victor as nobles whisper in disbelief. Adrien glances back with a subtle, knowing smirk. He scoffs at nobles gathering for what he calls childish fight. Nobles question how a trained knight lost to months of training. Furious eyes burn beneath a bandage, rage building intensely. The defeated prince screams, calling Adrien a damned delinquent. He storms off, vowing to settle this once and for all. A breathless servant bursts in stammering news to the prince. The knight reports the first prince has abruptly left the capital. A carriage travels north through a snowy, desolate landscape. Adrien compliments his companion's improved horsemanship on the journey. The dark-haired companion questions the extreme urgency of their departure. Adrien states he has no place left in the capital. A flashback shows nobles groveling before an imperial envoy. Adrien suggests soldiers might be better allies than calculating noble. He muses that shared hardship naturally builds loyalty and affection. His companion remains uneasy, sensing Adrien is rushing headlong into danger. Adrien recalls the elder high elf's warning about marking her target. He resolves he must build his strength before that happen. Adrien decides the peaceful capital cannot provide the growth he needs. To accelerate his growth, he must leave immediately. His companion realizes Adrien has a specific dangerous destination in mind. Adrien describes it as the place of humanity's greatest trial. He calls it the birthplace of the most legendary war epic. The scene reveals a vast snow-covered battlefield below mountain. Adrien identifies the peaks as the Blade Mountain Range, his family's border. His companion shivers, violently complaining about the freezing cold. Adrien refuses the carriage, insisting he must acclimate to the harsh weather. An elderly scholar inside the carriage offers to document the journey. Adrien glances ahead, his expression hardening with quiet resolve. A female knight rides stoically beside the carriage, scanning the horizon. Adrien suddenly calls out to her, asking if she is all right. The female knight insists she's fine despite the brutal condition. Adrien smiles, confidently unfazed by the growing storm around them. Arwin observes the scene with quiet, knowing amusement at the enthusiasm. Adrien glances back, sensing trouble brewing with the royal knight. The knights grumble bitterly about being forced into this northern mission. Adrien faces criticism. The royal knights aren't his personal guard. The king questions Adrien's judgment about recruiting personal knight. Adrien reflects bitterly. Karls was barred from this dangerous journey. The caravan presses forward as Adrien senses something ominous ahead. A dark-haired commander urges everyone to increase their pace urgently. Warning echoes. They'll be trapped if the blizzard fully engulfs them. Snowflakes transform into a raging, deafening blizzard without warning. The commander's expression darkens as conditions deteriorate rapidly. Adrien shouts orders, abandon the carriage and proceed on foot. His mana-enhanced voice cuts through the howling wind like thunder. Adrien screams desperately for Adilia, trapped inside the carriage. Adelia's eyes widen in shock at the prince's urgent call. Adrien pulls Adilia to safety as she stammers her gratitude. Arwin rushes to check on Adrien, who insists he's fine. Knights stumble dangerously, nearly colliding in the blinding whiteout. Adrien commands Arwin to protect Adilia at all cost. Adrien orders the foolish knights to drop their heavy shields immediately. He commands them to draw swords and abandon all cumbersome equipment. Adrien directs a massive knight to the front, forming a protective column. Each step through the blizzard weighs as heavy as gold. Soldiers trudge through blinding snow, exhaustion etched on every face. A soldier collapses mid-march, swallowed by the relentless blizzard. A panicked cry rings out. They've lost someone to the cold. The prince shoves past his guards, desperate to reach the fallen. Red-haired soldier lies motionless, frost creeping across his armor. The prince stands over the fallen man, jaw clenched with fury. He hoists the soldier onto his back, barking orders to march. The column of soldiers presses onward toward distant castle tower. Forced march nears its end, the prince barely standing. Armored boots crunch through deep snow with each grueling step. The prince mutters curses about the merciless, unending blizzard. Suddenly the sky clears. The castle gates gleam under brilliant sun. A black armored boot steps forward with deliberate, commanding authority. A cloaked figure approaches the massive gates, guards flanking silently. A scarred, bearded commander watches with sharp, calculating eye. A dark banner bearing an ancient crest snaps in the wind. The Earl of Ballerverd announces himself, welcoming the first prince formally. Prince smiles relief, washing over his battered, weary feature. The commander grins warmly. Welcome to Winter Castle, Your Highness.